drove
What
the
applicants for this show, guys?
SUV provided by Johnny, put the animals and all the luggage in, and headed out to the venue.
And the morning of April 22nd, did you see any injuries on Miss Heard?
No marks, no injuries.
And so, driving out to Coachella, did anyone drive with you?
I was in the car alone except for the animals.
And how did Miss Heard get to Coachella?
She drove a Mustang.
Was anyone else in her car?
She was with, I believe, her sister and one other friend, her sister.
And do you know how many days Miss Heard and her friends were planning to stay at Coachella?
So the following Monday, I believe it's the 25th of April, we parted.
And do you recall where Miss Heard was staying at Coachella?
So I'm actually gonna end up doing some art where I actually wasn't satisfied with before.
Were you
Since-
also staying at the Parker
Because of
Hotel?
that, I'm actually
I also stayed there.
might end up
So did you attend Coachella for
doing
work or
some
for
website
pleasure?
development afterwards. Because while I'm in the process of doing the
What
art,
was your job that
I'm
Imagine
actually
him
not
going
sure
to
what I'm gonna
Coachella.
do with that. But
Bye.
I know it's gonna have some
Sway
templates
a little bit.
beforehand.
He movies happens.
In any case,
That's a good
yeah,
gig.
I'm ready to continue.
Whatever she needed while she
Oh,
was there.
absolutely.
I'm back at
Like,
back
going for
and
the
got
music.
new completionist
He's
back.
not exactly.
Do you
So-
recall what time approximately you arrived at
It's
the
like
Parker Hotel on
some-
April 22nd?
The things came back.
Around 5:30ish, maybe 5:45.
And what did Miss Heard and her
Okay, I
friends
still
do
have
that
collection left.
April 22nd?
I can come back to what I'm not satisfied with,
This
what
is
I
getting
am
rough.
satisfied with,
We
and
assigned the rooms
what I
What
felt was
distraction right now.
undeveloped and such.
with the staff of the Parker Hotel around
That
to
being
the
said,
suites where we were staying. They let us
I
in. We let our
also
luggage in, and we proceeded
going
to
to make sure
plan for that evening to
to
depart
have
by 7.
some more conservative
7:15 to get
ways
to the festival.
of way of doing
And
things
how
while
did Miss
also
Heard
being
and her
efficient.
friends get from the hotel to the festival that evening?
But when I'm streaming, then I know I'm at
drove
least getting
them
somewhere.
directly to-
And did you have any discussions with Miss Heard on the way to Coachella that evening?
We
And
had a
my God,
conversation pertaining to
do I
the
have
surprise she
a
left in
lot
the
to
boss's
catch up
bag
to.
prior to leaving for the park.
And when you refer to the surprise in the boss's bed, what are you referring to?
The defecation.
Regardless,
What did Miss Heard say about the defecation in Mr. Depp's bed?
Not a good time to smirk, Amber.
I'm relatively well set up.
Yeah, right.
Mr. Jenkins, what observations did you make about Miss Heard at Coachella in April 2016?
She had no words. She was there to whip it up. It's her birthday. She's with her friends.
And how often were you with her that weekend?
I was with her every day. She went to the venue.
Back
From
to the
time
center.
that we interacted with the water
This
incident the night before at the
I
party.
can actually
all the way
place
until
here.
Monday, we returned
And this I can place here.
in the luggage.
Let's see.
And did you observe anything about Miss Heard's health that weekend?
She got sick.
Do you know
She
what
got sick at the venue every night.
Do you know what caused Miss Heard to be sick?
She was eating the magic mushrooms and drinking red wine on an empty stomach.
Alright,
And how do you know that she drank red wine and took
Here we
magic
go.
mushrooms?
and here you guys go.
I saw the room service and I went to their room to collect them, to take them out.
So
is
what
that
am I
something-
going to come back to
Is
first?
that something you witnessed?
Right, this one.
I witnessed
Watching on a court laptop.
And
No, I'm kidding.
what did
It's
you
not the real
do
one.
in response to Miss Heard being sick at Coachella?
Alright, so this is what I ended up doing for
Really
you.
get to the trial.
got her in the vehicle. She didn't want anyone else to know
All right.
that she was sick. Take her back to the Parker alone. I took her to the 7-Eleven where I retrieved hydrating
Lots of
fluids.
layers,
Got
like
some
a
love
one
for
model
Rick, too.
layer. So this is what the
Let her
output
have
was
those,
apparent.
got her back to the
I can
Parker,
definitely
got her
tell
to
this
the
is
suite,
dated,
and then
but
back to pick up everyone else.
let's see what I can do now then.
And Mr. Jenkins, when you said Miss Heard got sick, do you recall what her
I
symptoms were?
know now that I can
Yes,
definitely
Mr.
go in shapes. For sure
I've
now.
got some questions too.
Sometimes in
Mr. Jenkins, did you
swirls.
see any injuries of any kind on Miss Heard April
You're not
22nd,
immune to my
2016?
So
chat.
No injury.
let's see what goes from there.
What about the rest of that weekend, Mr. Jenkins? Any injuries that you saw?
No injuries.
Have you ever witnessed any physical abuse between Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard?
Poor last
No.
witness of the week.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Nothing further.
All right, cross-examination. More love for Rob here. I love it because if I
Good
go into
afternoon, Mr.
Mercator's chat,
Jenkins.
usually I'm getting these kind of super
afternoon.
chats, so I'm
So
loving
just
seeing this
just to
right
be
now.
clear on the chronology, you met Mr. Depp in 1993. Is that right?
Correct.
What I love
And
is
you've
she's
worked for him
matchmaking
ever
and
since?
collecting money to do it.
Off and on? Yes.
Okay. And your salary's paid by Mr. Depp, correct?
I'm just thankful I'm covered up by these super chats.
Salary.
Some
No.
partners.
You receive pay for the work that you do for Mr.
Yes.
Depp,
Okay.
correct?
Of course. Yes. Of course.
And what Mr. Depp's security is your highest priority in your job, correct?
Thank
Yes.
you, Jonathan.
You're loyal to Mr.
His
Depp.
and his family.
Oh, yeah.
And his family.
You're loyal to Mr. Depp, right?
Yes.
And I'll start
Now,
from here.
I want to turn to the night of April 21st, 2016. You just to recap, you said you were working a security shift
I want no
at
part of this.
Amber's birthday at the Eastern Columbia building that evening, correct?
Correct.
And you said that your shift ended around 11:15, correct?
Correct.
And you said the boss still hadn't shown up by the time that you left the Eastern Columbia building, right?
Correct.
There's a lot
So you have
to go
no
back to.
idea where Mr. Depp was or what he was doing from 9:30 p.m. that evening until at least 11:15 when you left the Eastern Columbia building, right?
No, I didn't know what he was doing. He was attending to his mother.
You weren't with them.
I had information.
Okay. All right. That's information that you received, but you have no personal knowledge of that.
I have no reason to doubt it. It came from Sean.
Okay. Oh, okay. So Mr. Bett
What?
told you that?
Oh,
The boss is out there.
Right. Mr. Bett told you that he was tending to his mother that night?
He didn't say mother. He said the boss was out there. I'm aware of what the situation was, the time frame. He's with his mother.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Okay. And did you have any understanding that he had a meeting with his new business manager earlier that evening where he was told that he was running out of money and that his taxes hadn't been paid in years? Did you have any understanding of that? from Mr.
Objection.
Bett or anyone else?
Objection. Foundation calls for speculation.
All right, I'll sustain the objection. Next question.
And you didn't see Mr. Depp that night, right?
No, I didn't.
So you came back the next morning to escort Amber to Coachella, right?
Yes.
And you say that Amber told you that she had thrown Mr. Depp's phone off the roof?
Correct.
And did you come to understand that Mr. Depp had thrown her phone off the roof that evening prior to when Amber threw Mr. Depp's phone off?
people are calling people's phones now.
It's taking on life of its own.
What kind of
Okay.
ratings
We'll do that.
games are you guys
You
being
went
back in?
outside to look for Mr. Depp's phone. You weren't looking for Miss Heard's phone, were you?
Oh God.
She had her phone. She was trying to re-download and back it up.
Okay, so you were only looking for Mr. Depp's phone when you went downstairs to try to. You found it with an unhoused person. You said, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and did I hear you right that you said it was 6 miles away where you found the phone?
Correct.
It actually wasn't
Maybe
6 miles
escaped
away. It
out
was actually right below the building, the ECB
No, it
building,
was
correct?
not.
Okay,
No,
let's.
it was not.
Can you pull up? Does he have a way to see documents that
Oh my gosh.
just him, Your Honor?
Yes.
Okay.
More
Could you
love
please
for Rob.
pull up the witness statement, Mr. Jenkins? Mr. Jenkins, do you remember giving testimony on Mr. Depp's behalf in the UK trial?
Yes, I did.
And you gave a witness statement first in writing, correct? Do you remember that?
Yes.
And then you were examined by the attorneys in the trial, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Can you see on your screen the statement that's? Do you see
This
a
is gonna
witness
be a
statement?
rough.
Yes, I see it.
It says
Be a
witness
rough
statement
clip.
of Starling Jenkins, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
And this is the statement that you wrote and signed as part of the UK trial on behalf of Mr. Depp, correct?
Correct.
Okay. If you can scroll, please, to page 3 of the document. And Mr. Jenkins, I'm going to read you what you wrote in paragraph 13.
Okay.
And we can go from there. On paragraph 13, you wrote in your witness statement in the UK trial, the Find My iPhone application indicated that Johnny's phone was somewhere on the streets below the balcony of the residence. Did I read that right?
Okay, accidentally.
If that's what it says, that's what it says.
Look at Vasquez.
The phone was in Skid Row.
Okay, so-
Photo of the gentleman that found it and have the location where the phone was found.
Isn't Skid Row just a few blocks away from the Eastern Columbia building?
No, it's on 6th and Main, I guess, depending on what area you're in.
Okay, so one of these two sworn statements, either what you just said in court just now that it was found 6 miles away, or this, one of these is false, correct?
It's just inadequate
that way
as far as the location. The location is not below the penthouse. It's not on Broadway. It was
Okay.
found on Broadway by the unhoused man, and then he lives off of Skid Row.
Okay. Now let's move on to Coachella, please.
Yes.
You were with Amber and her friends that weekend at Coachella, and you
Yes.
testified a little bit about what you saw. Is it fair to say that Amber and her friends were having a good time that weekend?
Yesterday.
And there were thousands of other people at that
Thunder
music
is
festival
right
too,
there.
correct?
Correct.
Were you aware
Lighters
that
here,
Amber's
the
sister
heaviest
Whitney
here.
was pregnant
The
and
heaviest
sober that
around
weekend?
here. The center of
Wasn't my
focus is
information,
obviously
wasn't my
here.
knowledge.
Were you
That
aware
means
that
that
Amber's
the
sister
sun-
Whitney threw up in a
Where
parking
the
lot
sun
that
is
weekend?
gonna be coming out outwardly. Okay.
No.
To your knowledge and understanding, Mr. Jenkins,
In that
there's
case,
nothing wrong
I'll
with
actually
wanting to
do-
spend time with your friends at a music festival after being abused by your husband, right?
The abused part, I would object to. I mean,
What
I don't know about
abuse?
object, but
That's not an abnormal thing to want to be around your friends, correct?
Legendary sun.
She was partying it up with her friends. She was
Okay.
partying it up.
And you said you didn't hear anything about, she didn't say anything to you about
Nope.
domestic violence having taken place, correct?
Nope. Nope.
Nothing in the car
None.
pertaining to that.
See ya.
Would it surprise you that she might not want to talk to someone who had worked for her husband for around 23 years at that point about domestic violence? Would that surprise you?
Objection, speculation, Your Honor.
sustain the objection. Next question.
Miss Heard texted you on May 12th, 2016, asking you to call her, correct?
Correct.
And you did not bother to respond to that text, correct?
Correct.
And that was the last communication that you had with her, correct?
Correct.
Now, you weren't, just to be clear, you weren't at Amber's house on Orange Avenue in March 2013 when Johnny was there, correct?
That's fucking much.
I might have driven him to the location. I'm familiar with the address.
But you didn't enter the house at any point in March 2013, correct?
Depending on if he had luggage or gifts going upstairs, I might have.
But you didn't hang out with him inside the house, right?
Hurry up and wait in the car.
And you weren't at the Hicksville Trailer Palace in late May or early June 2013, right?
No.
You weren't on a plane flight from Boston to Los Angeles in May 2014, correct? With Johnny and Amber.
Holy shit, that
weren't
works out well.
You weren't with Mr. Depp and Amber in the Bahamas in August 2014, correct?
Correct.
You weren't with Mr. Depp and Amber in Tokyo in January 2015, correct?
No, I was not there. Correct.
You weren't with Mr. Depp and Amber in Australia in March 2015, correct?
Correct.
You weren't at Thanksgiving with them in Penthouse 5 of the Eastern Columbia
Jeez.
building in November 2015,
Wait.
correct?
Thank you, Ash.
Somebody's wave like
I believe I was there.
You
I
didn't.
might
You
have
weren't.
been assigned the detail. I don't have the schedule, but I might have been assigned the detail.
You weren't-
Thanksgiving, it's a holiday.
Sure, sure. You don't have any specific recollection of that one way or the other, though, correct?
I would probably say I was on duty that day.
Okay.
It's the holiday.
Okay. You weren't celebrating Thanksgiving in Penthouse 5 with them that evening, correct?
I was in the CP.
Okay, and that's a separate room, correct?
Separate room on the same level, correct.
And you weren't in the Bahamas in late December 2015, correct?
Was that always Mike's avatar?
You weren't in the ECB with just the two of them the night of December 15th, 2015, correct?
That is right before the Christmas party.
Sure.
Correct.
And finally, you weren't in the penthouse of the Eastern Columbia building on the night of May 21st, 2016 with Mr. Depp and Miss Heard, correct?
Yeah.
Correct.
And you'd agree that you have no personal knowledge of what went on between Mr. Depp and Miss Heard behind closed doors, correct?
Correct.
Nothing further. Thank you.
All right, redirect.
10 minutes. We got 10 minutes.
Just very quickly, Your Honor, do we have Mr. Jenkins' witness statement?
Okay.
Or perhaps...
Oh shit!
He looks like Saracen from Friday Night Lights.
Yeah.
That's a baby lawyer.
And if we could go to the third page,
Okay.
please. Mr. Jenkins, directing your attention to paragraph 13, which Mr. Rottenborn had you look at just a second ago.
Yes.
He read the first sentence of that witness statement. The Find My iPhone application indicating that Johnny's phone was somewhere on the streets below the balcony residence. Walked out. Could you please read for the jury the second part of that paragraph?
I walked out onto the street, did not see the phone. I then asked several homeless people if they had the phone. One homeless man admitted to me that he had the phone, returned the phone to me in exchange for the following: $425 in cash, 3 chicken tacos, 2 bags of chips, 2 apples, 4 bottles of water.
And so do you recall where you found the iPhone that day?
Yes, I do.
Objection asked and answered.
All right, I'll sustain the objection. Next question.
I have no fucking idea what that is.
Mr. Jenkins, moving to Coachella, Mr. Rottenborn asked you about Whitney Heard. Do you know who that is?
Here.
I'm sorry.
Yes, I do.
Do you know the difference between Whitney Heard and Amber Heard?
Yes, I do.
And who was sick that
One
day?
is the boss's wife. One is the boss's sister.
Who was sick that day at Coachella?
Amber was sick.
Thank you. Nothing further.
All right, is this witness subject to recall?
No, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Jenkins, you're free from testimony, and therefore you're free to do whatever you need to do, or you can watch the proceedings. It's up to you. But
You can watch Legal Bites.
You're done for today, though. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you for the
So
court.
that's
All
why I
right,
did
Mr.
before.
Jenkins,
I
can you
did
please
it in
demonstrate your
outline,
Coachella dance moves?
which gave less saves. Okay.
All right, I think it's
Now
close enough to
before
5:30 that I think we've had enough
outlines would
of
make
a
harder
week.
to do things.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this
Now to
time,
saves,
we're going to go ahead and
where I
be
can
done
actually
with the
just
testimony
do it
for
in
this
blocks.
week. Although,
Okay.
since I won't see you until Monday, I want to give you the long jury instruction that I give you every Thursday evening, just so we all remember our responsibilities, okay? So at this time, remember that you are not to read anything about this case. You are not to watch anything about this case. You are not to listen to anything about this case. This applies to television, newspapers, magazines, the internet, and any online sites. Further, you are not to read, watch, or listen to anything about this case on any social networking sites such as Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, blogs, or similar sites. In
No, I
addition, you
didn't.
must not communicate with anyone about the case, whether in
What?
person, over the phone, by email, text, or instant messaging, or by any other electronic or non-electronic means. This includes your friends, family, coworkers, acquaintances, and strangers. I also instruct you that you cannot do any research or make inquiries about this case, whether online or by any other means. For example, you cannot look information up on the internet that is related to this case or related to the persons involved in this case, nor may you consult dictionaries or other reference materials. What you learn about this case is limited to what you learn in the 4 walls of this courtroom when proceedings are underway. You also may not communicate about this case or the persons involved in this case with your fellow jurors, okay? Hope you have a good weekend. It's supposed to be great weather on Saturday. Go outside, get some fresh air, okay? And just enjoy your weekend, and we'll see
The
you back
judge
Monday at 10.
Yay.
report. Judge tells
Happy
jury to cut
weekend.
grass.
Okay,
Feet
back
on
to
the
live.
grass, breathe some fresh air. Happy weekend, everybody.
Got
Made
more
it.
streams on Saturday.
We made it through week 3.
I really like Johnny Depp's suit. I want that suit.
And as
Of course I
always,
did.
Right?
Probably $12,000,
Devin misheard.
Rob.
Please do not do any
Yeah.
posting on social media and do not talk to the press. Appreciate it. And have a good weekend. For the attorneys, tomorrow. What time? How many? Did we do our homework this week? Yes. We did. Work in progress. Okay, so are we still doing 19 tomorrow?
All right.
20s. You added one for me. That's lovely. Okay, great. So we'll do 20 tomorrow. So I would suggest 8 o'clock. Everybody be here at 8.
8 o'clock.
Sound good? Okay, we'll
8
be here
o'clock.
at 8. We'll just do them until we're done. So
They
Bring a lot
you
of
know,
people.
the first week we know went till
All right.
6:30. I
Tomorrow,
suspect
then.
they
Have a good
hit her again, and she's like, "Screw this, guys."
Yeah.
I will jack that time up until you stop doing this.
There's gonna be
Next week's just gonna be like 6 a.m., y'all. Be in here.
Alita, you should pull up what the actual objections to the deposition designations look like on
I
the
don't
deck
know
guide.
I don't know if they have the objections actually up because they don't have the motions in limine up
Okay.
here, for example.
So here, I'll drop the link in the
Oh, okay.
older.
Rob's gonna show us how it's done.
private chat.
Okay,
Because
okay.
everyone's asked about it so many times about what it's like or why these depots are this way, and this gives you an idea of
Awesome.
Wow. Okay.
Look at how full
So that was
courtroom is.
also I feel like we got a good head start on our feature dating show on this channel. That was great. I appreciate all of the meme chats from people. Because we obviously we're here to educate and inform and whatnot, but that doesn't mean we can't have fun with it, right? So it's great. I love it.
What is this? Hour 45? I mean,
Of this week alone.
yeah, that's what I meant.
There's
Yeah.
definitely gonna be a legal precedent with this, given that it's actually just starting. It's only been barely 2
just
weeks
live
in,
streaming the
so-
trial, not including any kind of like pre-work to understand the trial ahead of time, but
You definitely. I mean, I think each of us
As
might have
such,
our time, but you definitely.
I'm actually interested in seeing
You're not allowed to not be
where the
here.
testimonies and
yeah, exactly.
where
I am required.
the direction
What
of
is the
this
approximate
case and their scenario
percentage estimate of
following
where the panel stands
the
on the likelihood
legal
that JD wins
courts
this case at this point in the trial?
will actually go. As such.
I'm in the 80s. How about you guys?
Ultimately,
Ooh, so I continue
I'm
to
interested in
discount
seeing
for
that
defamation
really
and
going
damages.
to be
But
setting a precedent
based on
and
what
knowing
we've seen so
in
far
that
from Amber Heard's
what
side,
men
I
need to
would
be
put
doing, I suppose.
a win. I can't promise a win with significant damages at like 75.
But as they stated before,
that's
if
pretty
you're actually
good.
watching their
That's pretty
stream
dang
a
good,
few hours
y'all.
beforehand,
The fact
there's
that
actually
we're
another
able to
case
come
that
that high.
actually has
Well,
a
I mean,
similar
with-
coherence to this.
Again, with the caveat,
So it's very
that
interesting.
that'll come down when Heard presents her defense. So
Sure.
right this moment, I'd have it at 75. Because I think a juror can still say these kids are wacky and no.
Yeah. They can say no on both, right? Okay, so the courtroom
Dark
is, I mean,
fields,
there's
huh?
still got some
Dude, void of darkness.
I mean, we can wait
All
until Johnny leaves.
Darkness within darkness.
He's with his. That looks like Sean Bett next to him there.
Rob, ever since you told me this room was
Oh.
big, I try to analyze how small the heads look.
Darkness within darkness.
You started to realize it, right? That's
That
a lot
goes
more
that
people
goes
in
way
there.
away, yeah. So look at the
Yeah.
tiny little heads.
Yeah. Katie, the jury is not sequestered. They just are being trusted to stay away from everything.
But here you get a good look at the jury box and how close it is and the screen setup, so you can see what they're seeing.
Yeah. It's pretty good.
Oh yeah, the screens are right there. Cool.
Actually,
There
I'm
you
gonna,
go.
I'm gonna save this one
Got
for,
the base.
for an answer. So let's get some super chats here. All right. E Wood says lots of hearsay in the depots. Is this just agreed upon ahead of time to save time during trial? Well, I mean, also things that are out of court statements are not necessarily hearsay. It also depends on why they are being offered. So, you can say that you heard people talking, it isn't necessarily hearsay if it's just being offered for like effect on the listener as an example of like how a statement could come in and wouldn't be hearsay. It's confusing because you have something needing to meet the definition
It's
of
getting
hearsay,
reopened.
and then there's the
It's getting
possibility that
reopened,
even if it is hearsay,
reopened.
it could fall into a. I really should do a
Return
flow
to
chart for
sender.
hearsay. That's really what I should do, is make like a PowerPoint flow chart so people can understand like how this kind of works.
Get that
like,
video
how you
qualified for
analyze it.
CLE. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Open.
Yeah, seriously.
Reopen
Seriously.
the autosave. Return to sender.
But
That's right.
yeah.
Return to
Rod,
sender.
love the knowledge and the insight Rob adds to the panel. Thanks for all the different perspectives. Keep up the great work. Yeah,
This
thank
document you have linked to, Rob, frightens and confuses me as a transactional attorney.
So that document,
I'm gonna pull it up.
that is what they're
share it.
looking at.
Okay.
1 second here. It is loading.
Yeah, because it's 75 pages long. And it's damn near
If
inscrutable.
you scroll like through the first set of objections, you get an idea of what it is they do on
Darkness
these
within
Fridays.
darkness fields.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
And save
So
now.
defendant and counterclaimant
And
plaintiff Amber Laura
absolute
Heard's
base.
objections to the deposition designations of plaintiff and counterclaim defendant John. Okay.
Change
So,
the
okay.
Mitchell.
scroll
So-
down
I was
to
gonna say, you ain't seen
so
nothing
there's
yet.
the key to the objections up top. So when you're looking
The fact
at
that you
everything on
need
the
a
page
key
and line-
is indicative of the complexity here.
Yeah. So every page and line references a specific question asked by one of the lawyers during the deposition. So you've got a 6-hour deposition, and the lawyers are asking questions along the entire way. There's objections that are made at various questions. And then you've got the response, then you've got the next question. So this designates the page and line number where the question is asked. And then there's a summary of what the objection to the actual question is. So on Fridays, when they're walking through these deposition designations, they're going question by question, and the judge is saying, is there an agreement that this objection is withdrawn, or that part of the answer can come in, or do you need me to make a specific ruling on the objection that you made? And then they pull up the part of the transcript and they walk through and they make a ruling. And then someone has to go back and edit that film to be in accordance with the court's ruling. So on Fridays, they're working through these massive documents, trying to filter out all of the objections, and there's negotiating in the back end of, yeah, exactly. Yep.
Because the judge will kill you if you ask for all of these, right?
Yes. So the judge basically says, look, in depositions, I know that you guys make a lot of BS objections. You really do. I know you do. I do. We all do. Figure out which ones are actually valid, which objections you actually want to stand on, just like in discovery. Which objections you actually want to stand on, and if you guys don't have an agreement, whittle them down, and I'll go through there. So when Judge was referencing that round robin setup, that round robin setup is basically teams of attorneys that are broken off, and they're hammering through which objections they actually want to stand on, and then they can approach the judge as they've got the
Darkness within darkness.
conclusions.
So and when we're talking about 20, we're talking about 20 depositions that are being looked at, right? Is that what they said, or 20?
I don't know if it's 20 depositions or if it's 20 issues that the court needs to resolve.
Yeah. Okay.
I imagine
Yeah.
it might be 20 complex issues.
Yeah, because what was your question just then? Did you get through 19? And then, and then Elaine says
Dark
20,
Sun.
Your Honor. And she goes,
Yeah.
oh, you added one.
Yeah. Jesus, thank you. That's very kind of you. Okay, let's get some super chats here.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. That's
yes.
they're doing a lot of work.
Okay, I can do that.
Yeah, for sure. Okay,
As
lots
usual.
of hearsay in the depots. So yeah, I answered this one.
What goes with this?
Hollister 74 says, would JD have a stronger case against Amber Heard if violation of the non-disclosure agreement then defamation? No, it's neither here nor there that the non-disclosure agreement has been violated.
Yeah, I mean, you could have combined a breach claim, maybe, depending on a whole host of things, but that didn't happen.
Yeah. Umbrella says this guy had to do the depo because they lost another case, right? Which one were we talking about? Which deposition was this at the time? This was like 4 or 5 hours ago.
This must have been ACLU.
Okay.
Oh yes, that was brought up that they tried to fight their subpoena, right? So that would make sense.
Yes.
Tap dancing ACLU lawyer.
Yes, he was definitely tap dancing. Kit Kat XK says this is it, right? He wins now. It was on purpose. She defamed him to be impactful. Well, I mean, if the jury was paying attention, and if they do see what we see, right? I mean, because to me, I think that's something that is very, very important here for showing actual malice. It's pretty powerful, I think.
Yeah, she did it deliberately, but we're still stuck on the question of whether what she did was false.
Yeah, because we're still going through the various incidents and things like that. So, and she's going to get to put on her case to show, whether or not she actually was injured and whether there was, destruction to the apartment, etc.
Yeah,
Ruth
and
Rose.
I think the way I'm scoring it is maybe a little lower than people think, because I'm scoring it without Amber Heard's defense, so it is going to go down, I think, from what is likely to finish at 75 and maybe get to 80 for me.
Fair.
So there's still a lot of variability.
Yeah, that's fair. Ruth Rose says, "Will we hear from Robin that wrote the op-ed?" I don't know. This probably is going to be all that we're going to hear from the ACLU. I imagine this just seems like the person who would be the best person to talk to and to get the information that we need. We don't need to talk to everyone that was involved.
Yeah, and it should have been the best person, right? But it is interesting that we.
No. Are you kidding me? Internet issues right off the bat. Okay, where's my hotspot? I can at least do that. Oh, hotspot. Oh, mobile hotspot. Okay. Okay, let's see what it is. I'm just gonna quick connect. You just click backup. This came out of the blue. Okay. Meanwhile, All right, one. We back. We back. Oh, we back. We back. Okay. Oh, press out. Let me just restart the damn stream. Okay, we back. We back.
By the ACLU, damage to their reputation maybe, or fraud, were their actions unethical or just questionable? I don't think, we talked about
that was easy.
action. I don't see anything happening for them through this. I mean, damage to reputation, sure. This doesn't look good for them.
All right, now that I'm back live.
Yeah.
Let's see.
It doesn't look good for them for sure.
Back to art.
But I mean, as far as people respecting the ACLU, a lot of people have a lot of opinions about the ACLU, and a lot of that kind of depends on people's politics.
Copy this.
But I don't know how much that will change on either side of that aisle. But
I actually think it fit into my personal understandings of how nonprofits work. So I didn't see anything that was terribly wild, and honestly, I don't expect the general counsel / COO of the ACLU to do anything but tap dance when talking about a donor that, at least ostensibly, still has pledged to pay them $2 million. So it all seems within the normal bounds of operation to me.
Well, you also have a lot of experience with analyzing these
Gray,
corporate
blacker, darker,
transactions
cooler.
and
I'm already
501c3s
broken.
and stuff.
It's fair.
Yeah, you're already jaded there.
Nope.
Senile Hero says, if JD wins, what does it mean for Amber Heard's countersuit? Well, they both are independent questions that are being answered at the same time. They can both win, both lose, or one of them win, one lose. So it's a question of was it a lie that she was it a lie to say that she created this whole hoax about the DV thing, or was it a lie to say that Johnny abused her? Those are two separate questions and kind of slightly nuanced.
That's
a little different from one another. One doesn't automatically knock out the other. Justin Ames says, have they proven Amber Heard lied in the op-ed? I'm confused. Not so much the lie part. That's what we're getting at with the DV incidences, right? But what we were getting at with the ACLU,
now the son
with the ACLU witness was more along the lines.
Happening with the older
more along the lines of whether she was generally being honest or whether she was kind of creating this whole scheme.
Okay, so it's
that was the biggest part of that.
So that means the
CNC
sky
White said,
must
in
be
your
inverted.
expert opinion, does the fact that strategy and NDA was discussed between Amber Heard and the ACLU prove that they purposely defamed JD? Keep it up. I mean, it certainly helps. It certainly helps that she had some purpose behind it.
I mean, I think it's separate though, because I made this point earlier when people were saying, can you sue ACLU for this? You can only sue ACLU if they knew the statement itself was false. I mean, the ACLU is publishing what they believe is a true statement, and therefore the only thing that they're worried about, honestly, is that Amber doesn't get completely bent over by this NDA. So I don't see anything wrong with those two going back and forth and making these revisions. The thing that's wrong is if this statement itself was a lie.
Yeah. I was thinking more specifically about Amber. Hey Laura B, how's it going?
Good. Let me hook you up to my thing here.
Sure. And just so you guys know, I do have to leave in about 5 minutes because I'm going to be jumping onto Chrissy Mayer's channel. So
oh nice.
I wanted to give you that warning since you just joined us, Laura. But I will be doing tomorrow. So there's a bunch of super chats that I haven't gotten to. I see that there's some that are still coming in. And what I'm gonna do is tomorrow I will be doing a super chat catch up and kind of like a week in review hangout. Hey Jax.
Hey.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good to see you.
I'm actually
Good to see you guys too.
We're here. Just sit here. Is my
here.
earbud? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, then that's fine. Yeah, I just wanted to pop on because I noticed you've been asking questions about not knowing what things have been ruled on in the past and why things are happening the way they were. So I thought I could help you out with some of those.
Okay, thank you.
One of the things you asked about was why is this being live? I'm so tired. I'm going to lose my words. Why is it televised? So I happen to know about that personally. I had contacted the courthouse like 6 months before trial. And one of the things I wanted to do was apply to live tweet. So I just called to see if there's a way I can do that. And they said, no, they're not going to allow it. But I got chatting with the clerk and they were very nice. So she said, if you have any questions, just shoot me an email. So I thought of some questions and I shot her an email and she answered and she was very nice. And then I don't know if it was the day before the pre-trial conference, it might have been. My number was on the email and she called me and she's very nice. And she says, the judge is considering a lot of issues about this trial. We're getting a lot of calls and it seems like a lot of people want to come. So we're trying to figure out how to deal with anything. So she wants all the questions that you can think of. And I think that we're going to call other people, not just me. So I sent in all the questions. And one of the things that she was thinking about on her own was the live feed, because they just couldn't handle as many people they thought might be coming to descend on the courthouse with the security. So it was the judge's idea to do the live feed. So I remember the meeting, reading about it, and she gave them both, I think, 2 weeks to come up with a reason one way or another why they opposed it or agreed with it. Johnny agreed with it. He's been like
mean,
that
it can
with the
be easily
protective order. He
animated,
hasn't
too,
been wanting to
the
hide
applications
anything
that have been
because
created in
his
technology.
experience has been with the media, cherry picking things out of motions, out of documents all along, and that's the blazing headlines, never the full story and never his side. So he says, you know
That's
what?
what we've been seeing too.
I don't want to
in this
rely on the
case.
media. I want it live feed.
Yeah.
Now there is a strict protective order in place, and Ms. Braderhoft violated it that day at the hearing. Was a WebEx hearing, which was open, and Courthouse News at least was on the WebEx hearing. So she was fighting against the live feed, and she yelled out, or I won't say she yelled, said out loud in the hearing that that's not fair to my client. My client has been barred, and that should not be live feed. And so the judge said no. When that time comes, if I feel the need to do something else, I'll do it. But I think I'm going to do the live feed. So that's what happened with that. So then you guys are asking about why there's two titles on the article. There's the online title that came out right away. Then the print title changed. So the online title was I fought against sexual violence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
I'm going to do iterations of logic.
When this first came up and they were trying to do the change of venue, there is a transcript on there, and I think it was with Eric George was her lawyer at the time. And they were trying to argue to move it to California, and they were arguing other things in the op-ed. And one of the things that came up was she didn't write that title, so that shouldn't even be considered. She never wrote it; they wrote it. So in Johnny's claim, he identified 4 statements in the
not just one layer to sign
in her article. 3 were accepted. The 4th one was something about I had to change my phone number and I got death threats or something like that. And the judge said that's not defamation. So he didn't allow that one in. So the title was never considered. I'm on speaker, just to let you know. If you want to say hi, you can say hi. That was never considered.
Okay.
So then on the further filing for the change of venue, she, on April 11, 2019, filed her declaration. And this is the first time, because it was before the UK, this is the first time we see all the new incidents she's claiming that were not in the TRO. So this is the first time. And in that declaration, there is nothing about a sexual assault, nothing filed in this case. So first we have her fighting to get this title removed. We see Rottenborn showing that article, the print article with the different title. He's not showing it in court. So she's fought to get that title released. She never claimed any SA in her declaration. And now at the pretrial hearing, which may have also, because there's a protective order, it could have come up before later. Suddenly now she's bringing up these new SA claims in this trial. Now we do know she threw them out in the UK trial at the last minute. And she requested that trial be sealed. She didn't want any public. She didn't want anybody in there. She didn't want any media because I'm going to talk about these things. And the judge in the UK said, nope, it's going to be public. And those few times that you need to talk about it, in fact, I guess it was one meeting, they went off to a confidential annex and spoke about it. I think the people who were there said they were gone like maybe 15 minutes and then came back in.
Okay.
So that was that one.
Okay.
Huh. Okay. Okay.
Curvy bands here.
So I hate to do this, you guys, but I actually do have to cut the stream down. I know, Joe, you just got here. I'm so sorry, guys. Yeah,
because
I'm going
famous people to hang out with.
No, Chrissy Mayer invited me onto her podcast. It starts in 3 minutes, so I do want to be on time if I can. God, I hate cutting this off.
So the other thing was the demand letter was not a TRO letter. So there was a demand letter for money. He wouldn't agree to it. That's why she filed the TRO. So they're separate items. So now that was pretty much what you were talking about. But yeah, the demand letter is interesting.
Excellent.
Yeah. Okay. But I will be going live tomorrow to do a recap a weekly thing to talk about the week, but mostly to get caught up on all these super chats. If you guys want to join me for that tomorrow, I don't know exactly what time yet. I'm gonna try to figure out the timing on it.
Just link it.
Yeah, and I'll put it on all my socials. With that, is there any last words for anybody? Joe.
I just want to thank you for having me on here. I feel as if
Yeah.
I was able to
really
express
heard.
myself in ways I feel inhibited and express it in other ways. So
Yeah, I often think of
I
Joe as
thank you so
inhibited.
much.
So yeah, I can see how that
I'm
is.
always
Very
I'm the
restrained.
shy one. So
Always,
Yes,
always,
you're the-
always. So,
the whole-
Alita,
just come out.
go to your next
Nope.
show. All
Thank
right,
you.
No,
everybody.
yes,
thank you.
for hanging out with us.
And
Night,
before
everybody.
we go though, subscribe to everybody's channels, like their videos, watch their stuff. Go get Good Logic up to what 45,000? Is that what we're
I'm like 300 away. It's
There,
like a
yeah,
joke.
get him to 45,000, guys. Do it. Go to
I just did
45.
Get him,
20,000.
Bing.
he just passed 65. Get him to 66. Potentially criminal. You at 3,000 yet?
Yes, I
Yeah,
passed.
you're at
Thank you.
3,000.
Beautiful.
Let's get him to 4,000. Let's do it, guys.
I'll be on
Let's do
tonight
it.
9:30 as well, guys.
Perfect.
All right, everyone.
Perfect.
We'll see
All
you on
right,
the next
guys.
one.
And with that, I'll see you in the next video.
Okay. I know what I'm going to do now. I'm going to play catch up now.
Hey, welcome, Zach. I'm Ray. Welcome to Gotcha Motors. I received from Dodge a configuration on a build that you wanted to do.
Yep, my Ram 1500.
And I wanted to.
Take a look at this map and chart by Al Jazeera, published just days after the last US troops left Afghanistan. It shows where and how many US troops are in each country. But there's a country missing on the chart that should be right about here. This isn't unique. It's missing from this 2017 map by Business Insider as well, and many other published maps and charts. If you look at the United States Military Deployments Wikipedia page, it's not listed either, though this may be because it didn't list countries in which the US military are engaged in active combat operations. I'll admit, I'm cherry picking a little here, but this country missing is still strangely common. The public knows little about the US presence in this country. Henry Hudson discovered New York with the US military being pretty open about their presence there. But before I tell you what country this is, first, I want to share with you today's sponsor. A while back, I made a video on how to create your own country. Well, you can forget everything I said, because it just got a lot easier. With Politics and War, an online political strategy game where you can create your own country and compete with thousands of other players, diplomatically, militarily, and economically. Politics and War is free to play with limited microtransactions to ensure that the game is fair and not pay to win. Play for free in your browser at politicsandwar.com or download the Politics and War app on the App Store or Google Play Store. Now back to today's topic. The country I'm talking about is the Republic of Djibouti. Located in the Horn of Africa, between 3,000 to 4,000 US troops are operating out of a base here, named Camp Lemonnier. This isn't exactly new. Almost immediately following the 9/11 attacks, the US began leasing Camp Lemonnier, a former French Foreign Legion base, on the outskirts of Djibouti City, Djibouti's capital and most populated city. The US has been conducting operations out of the base ever since, and it isn't going anywhere. Since being established in 2002, the base has continued to expand and improve its facilities. Take a look at this satellite imagery. The United States has even entertained the idea of creating permanent structures and allowing families to accompany soldiers, signaling that the U.S. has no plans to leave Djibouti. Camp Lemonnier became so heavily trafficked at one point that in 2013, Chebelet Airfield, which is leased by the French but had rarely been used, took over most of Camp Lemonnier's drone operations. The operations have been based there ever since. And this isn't France's only base. And Djibouti isn't just home to French and US military. Italy, Japan, and China also have bases in the country, and they are all just a few kilometers or less away from each other. German, Spanish, and UK troops also have a presence on the French and American bases. Saudi Arabia is currently finalizing a deal for a base. India is scouting out a location for one. And Ethiopia, a landlocked country bordering Djibouti, is working to house its navy in Djibouti City. But why? Of all places, why do so many countries want a base in Djibouti? To put simply, geography. Located in the Horn of Africa, the Republic of Djibouti is a small country in both population and size. It's home to just under 1 million people and possesses a land area of around 23,000 square kilometers. Though small, Djibouti's geographic location is what has made this country a significant participant on the global stage. Djibouti lies at the southern entrance to the Red Sea, a virtual bridge between Africa and the Middle East, and is adjacent to some of the world's busiest shipping lanes. At the same time, Djibouti is a stable country when compared to many of its neighbors. To the southeast, Somalia's economic and political failures, especially outside of the self-declared state of Somaliland, have bred piracy and terrorism, including an al-Qaeda affiliate, Al-Shabaab, a group responsible for the killing of at least 500 people in a huge truck bombing in the capital, Mogadishu, in October 2017. But Al-Shabaab sometimes reaches outside of Somalia's borders. In 2015, 148 were killed when Al-Shabaab gunmen stormed a Kenyan university. Another large attack occurred in 2020 on a joint U.S.-Kenyan military camp, killing 3 U.S. citizens, including 1 service member. In Uganda, the group was responsible for the bombing of a rugby club and restaurant during the 2010 Football World Cup final between Spain and the Netherlands, killing 74 people watching the match. To the west of Djibouti is South Sudan. Established in 2011, it's the newest country in the world, but has been embroiled in a civil war for most of its existence. To South Sudan's north is Sudan, the country South Sudan broke from after their own civil war. A military coup occurred in Sudan just days before this video was published. Neighboring Ethiopia became violent in 2020 due to conflict between its federal government and Tigrayans after a political party associated with the Tigrayan ethnic group was stripped of its political power. Neighboring Eritrea joined the conflict and has been accused of committing atrocities against the Tigray region's population and Eritrean refugees in Ethiopia that fled Eritrea's oppressive government. Nearly 2 million people in Tigray have been displaced. Sitting just across the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, which links the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden, is Yemen, also embroiled in their own civil war since 2014, which has allowed al-Qaeda affiliates to thrive in the country. Less than 2,500 kilometers away are 2 other important gulfs, the Gulf of Oman and the Persian Gulf, linked by the Strait of Hormuz. However, some of these countries that now have a home in Djibouti are direct competitors on the global stage. China has strong economic ties to both the US and the EU, but both sides watch each other suspiciously, as China's military strength, economy, and global influence rapidly grow, and with it, fears in the West of a shifting international order. China and Japan have had a long history of rivalry, though it has improved in recent years. China also has a rocky relationship with India. The 2 nuclear powers have a history of violent border clashes over disputed territory, sometimes with literal sticks and stones. In 2020, one of these clashes resulted in the deaths of 20 Indian soldiers. China did not publicly release how many of its troops were killed, but did state they suffered 43 casualties. Djibouti did take global rivalry into consideration once. Due to the NATO presence already in Djibouti, in 2014, Djibouti barred Russia from creating a base in the country, after it requested to build one. According to the Foreign Minister of Djibouti, Mohammed Ali Yusuf, in 2014, the country's leadership does not want Djibouti to, quote, become the terrain for a proxy war, and that we just felt that the time of having Russian presence in Djibouti was not appropriate because of what was going on in Syria and Ukraine and other places. We felt that conflicting interests could really rise up here in Djibouti, and we said, okay, we don't want to have 2 superpowers in this country that could be face-to-face in a conflicting situation. But just 2 years later, Djibouti took their chances with China. U.S. government officials say they were blindsided by Djibouti's approval of China's first overseas military base. China's state news agency stated that the base will ensure China's performance of missions such as escorting, peacekeeping, and humanitarian aid in Africa and West Asia. The base will also be conducive to overseas tasks, including military cooperation, joint exercises, evacuating and protecting overseas Chinese and emergency rescue, as well as jointly maintaining security and international strategic seaways. The People's Liberation Army daily newspaper said in a front-page commentary that the facility was a landmark that would increase China's ability to ensure global peace, especially because it had so many UN peacekeepers in Africa and was so involved in anti-piracy patrols. But China's competitors are concerned that the base's true and sole purpose is to expand its influence and power across the region. The concerns were addressed in the state-run Global Times. The paper stated, "Certainly, this is the People's Liberation Army's first overseas base, and we will base troops there. It's not a commercial resupply point. It makes sense that there is attention on this from foreign public opinion." The paper went on to state that it's not about seeking to control the world. Both the US and China are concerned with economic growth in the region. The US wishes to grow the economy in the Horn of Africa to improve stability and therefore reduce piracy and terrorism. While China is also concerned about piracy, they do not face the same homeland security threats that the US does from terrorist organizations located in the Horn of Africa, though they have been threatened. Instead, they are more focused on developing the region to boost their own economy. Directly adjacent to the naval base is the port of Dorala, which was originally owned and operated by UAE and Chinese companies until the container facility was seized by the Djiboutian government in 2018. This port is part of China's Belt and Road Initiative, a global infrastructure development strategy adopted by the Chinese government in 2013, a 21st century version of the Silk Road. One of the berths of the port is reserved for the use of the Chinese Navy. All of the container terminals have direct access to the Addis Ababa Djibouti Railway, which provides landlocked Ethiopia with railroad access to the sea. This railway is another major Chinese investment project. It was financed and constructed by the Chinese. The railway supersedes one built by the French from 1894 to 1917, but the tracks fell into disrepair. By 2004, Ethiopia lost access to the sea, and by 2014, only 213 kilometers of rehabilitated tracks were usable. China is donating large sums of money and providing risky loans to Horn of African countries for projects such as these. But given that China has few allies, some of these gifts may be more for gaining support on the international stage than for economic gain at home. A clearer example of this was a $200 million headquarters for the African Union that was gifted by China. Unsurprisingly, China's Djibouti base has already resulted in conflict between the US and China. In 2018, the US said that China was pointing lasers at their pilots flying overhead. The Pentagon would not provide the exact number of incidents that occurred, but put it between 2 and 10 over a 3-week period. 2 pilots were injured in one incident, and a formal complaint was made to China. China denied the allegations. The United States is not the only ones concerned about the Chinese presence. In 2019, the head of France's Parliamentary Foreign Affairs Committee, referring to the Chinese presence in Djibouti, stated, "Strategically, we need to strengthen the French presence threefold: economically, culturally, and militarily. It's urgent, otherwise we will lose ground." Djibouti was a French colony until 1977, when it gained independence. The two have had close ties ever since. Currently, the French have around 1,400 soldiers stationed in Djibouti, though some sources claim there are as many as 5,000. Either way, it's the largest force outside of France. Japan has 1,200 troops in Djibouti, and it is Japan's first foreign base since World War II. Like other nations in the country, Japan's Djibouti base is dedicated to curbing piracy, but in 2016, Japan confirmed they were expanding their base. Japanese officials claimed it was to allow for easier rescue of Japanese citizens in Africa, but the timing makes it likely that this was to counter Chinese influence, as this was just months after the construction of the Chinese naval base was announced. India also seeks to counter Chinese influence in the region. If India unsuccessfully acquires a base in Djibouti, as an alternative, it has discussed the possibility with Japan of using their facilities. Italy has made the situation even more awkward. Though Italy is a NATO country, hosts a NATO defense college, and has over 11,000 U.S. military personnel stationed within its borders, they do not share the same views on China as France and the United States. In 2019, Italy endorsed China's Belt and Road Initiative. And in 2018, China's Global Times reported that China and Italy held a joint medical assistance training event in Djibouti at Italy's base. Italy has historic ties to the region. Eritrea, Ethiopia, and the southern portion of Somalia were all once Italian colonies. The northern part of Somalia was occupied during World War II. The establishment of Italy's Djibouti base came in 2013, coinciding with the launch of the European Union naval force to fight piracy in the Gulf of Aden and the Indian Ocean. Saudi Arabia's future base would serve to combat piracy as well, but would also likely be part of its effort to unite Sunni Muslim countries in the greater Middle East to combat Iranian influence in the region. All of these world powers have influenced landlocked Ethiopia to house their navy in Djibouti. With 95% of all of Ethiopia's exports and imports now going through Djibouti ports thanks to the finished railway, Ethiopia is concerned that Djibouti is controlled by foreign naval forces, which could interfere with Ethiopia's trade. The head of the state-owned Ethiopian Shipping and Logistics Services Enterprise stated, "We are afraid perhaps in the future that even Djibouti may not have its own say to really decide on its own fate. This is quite a threat to Ethiopia." But one major reason all of these countries have a presence in the country is power projection. There is no official definition for power projection, but for this video, I'll use the definition from a 1990 paper by a US Air Force major. The paper states, "Power projection is defined as the finite application of military power by national command authority to achieve discrete political ends outside of the borders of the United States, its territories, and possessions. Power projection contingencies are characterized as wars and operations short of war, but not conflicts that are global or total in nature. Future contingencies that demand a U.S. response may occur without warning, be time-sensitive, and require short duration deployments. U.S. forces may not have immediate access to or a previously established presence in potential theaters of operation." This definition can of course apply to countries other than the U.S. Some have criticized Djibouti for playing multiple sides, simply for the money. Together, these countries pay a total rent of at least $150 million, nearly 5% of Djibouti's total GDP. And Djibouti has taken money from other countries for other purposes than just bases. Djibouti's National Assembly building, completed in November of 2014, was built and partially financed by the government of Iran, an adversary to both the US and Saudi Arabia. Iran's parliament speaker attended the building's inauguration, and Turkey paid for and constructed Djibouti's largest mosque, which was completed in 2019. Djibouti has decided that this is in their best interest. Djibouti is a poor country. It has a GDP per capita of less than $3,000. A large reason for this is that it has little mineral resources to export, and less than 0.1% of its land is arable. Its geographic location is really its only asset. Djibouti's decision to act as a door to the Horn of Africa for so many nations has certainly paid off in the short term, but will it continue to pay dividends? A major conflict between these global powers could turn Djibouti into a devastated conflict zone. Only time will tell. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more geography videos. Thank you for watching.
Wait, that's the cable? I was expecting something so much bigger. That's the internet. To get across the ocean, nearly all internet traffic has to use a cable like that one. It's tiny.
You're actually surprised.
So surprised.
I know, I can tell. Love it. All right, let's go get some hard hats.
If you're watching this YouTube video anywhere outside of the United States, this is probably how it's getting to you.
For most of us, the internet is virtual. It's made of Instagram posts and emails and YouTube videos, but it's also a physical thing. And what it's made of and where it goes matters for how we use the internet now and who will benefit in the future. So I want to know, how does our internet really work? And what comes next?
The decade I was born, people were still learning about the internet, and they didn't exactly consider it crucial.
But you know, I think about this, and what about this internet thing? What the hell is that exactly?
And they call it the World Wide Web. You can email anyone.
What the hell is email? Can you believe what's possible these days? Conversations through your computer?
But now it seems we can't even function without it.
Jobs require online applications.
Parents around the country know that their kids can't get an adequate education without internet access.
I mean, people tweeting that they needed to be rescued and a boat come in. It's truly been life-saving.
The internet has become essential to us, but a lot of us still don't know how it works. Okay, I need you to close your eyes. Just trust me, just close your eyes. Yeah, for real, I'm serious. Close your eyes.
What's the craziest thing she could show us when we open our eyes? I hope it's kittens.
Okay, now you can open them.
Tiny people.
They're us.
It's tiny us.
So I know that there are three major parts of the internet. We are on this outer ring. They call it the last mile, but really it's the first and last mile. So it's the texts we send, the notifications we receive, the apps we use. Everything we do to connect or receive information from the internet happens in this first and last mile. And we are inside the box office. Also out in this outer ring are houses, and you guys want to help me put these down?
Yes,
so
trees.
all of the trees and all of the houses, all Wi-Fi, which uses routers somewhere in our office or somewhere in your home, and all cell service, which means that you're pinging a cell tower a little bit further away, but still pretty close by. All this wireless technology uses radio waves to send signals into and out of the internet. I'm going to show you how this works.
So it's definitely
But first,
pretty basic
we're
right
going to
now.
take a selfie. Perfect. Okay, so this is our selfie. I'd like to call it introduction.
Joss, you've nailed that face.
Yeah, it's my go-to. So I'm just gonna send this to you via email.
Typical email.
Typical email. There it is. Boom.
Ta-da.
So my goal is to figure out how my email got from my phone to yours. In order for my email to get from here to here, my phone takes that photo and cuts it up into more manageable packets.
We've been decapitated. Just me.
Just you. So imagine each packet like a letter in an envelope. So if each envelope gets a header, which is a little bit more information that includes
Where it's from.
where it's from and where it's going to, and a bunch of other things that we're not going to talk about. So the format of each header follows a set of rules, and you can think about these rules like the rules of the online postal system, how everything is packaged and sent and received on the internet. So you've probably heard people say that everything that happens in our computer is ones and zeros, right?
I have.
Binary.
Yeah.
Which we can think of as a kind of Morse code your computer understands. And everything that you send over the internet is also binary.
What?
Ta-da!
When did this happen?
I do magic now.
So
Okay,
the
so
three
each one or
states
zero is a
are saying
bit,
from the
and
2D
8 bits
which is good. That means I'm actually
is
getting
a
through.
byte. So if this
With
photo
this
was 1.1 megabytes, that's 8,800,000 ones and zeros.
So somehow these binary ones and zeros have to get onto radio waves to be transported to the router.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's where I got stuck. So
I'll
I called
move
up
on to the
Sundeep
box.
Rangan, who specializes in computer engineering at NYU.
The box with the first
How
tail
does a wave
fine, but the
carry
second
binary
box-
information?
That is a very good question. So the simplest thing you could do is every time you want to transmit, say, a 0, you could transmit one frequency. And every time you want to transmit a 1, you transmit a different frequency. And then as long as the receiver can detect which frequency it is, it can know it's a 1 or 0. That's actually called frequency modulation.
Is it also fair then to say that at its most basic, a cell phone is a radio?
And it is a radio. It is absolutely a radio.
Okay, so waves with binary information have to get from my phone to the router, but then at the router, they have to be turned into something else that can go out the back of that device along cables to get to their next location. Depending on what the wire is made of, it's either going to be pulses of electricity if the wire is copper, or pulses of laser light
So it's a laser, and it just turns on when there's a 1 and turns off when it's 0.
So faster than this.
A little bit faster than
Faster than this? So our photo went from binary to radio waves to little flashes of laser light, right?
Yeah.
Where does it go after that?
We're about to find out, but I'm gonna take Alex.
You're not taking me?
No, it's his turn. I gotta go. So the wires out of the back of our router connect to other wires inside our office, which are owned by our internet service provider, or ISP. And they're responsible for looking at the header of each of those envelopes and figuring out the most efficient route to get to its next location, which is an internet hub.
And where would that be?
Right there. That's an internet hub.
This old building?
Yeah.
All right, let's go.
It looks just like every other office building I've ever seen.
Well, it started as Western Union's headquarters, so it supported telegraph operators back in the day, and it's migrated to today where it's supporting the internet here in lower Manhattan.
That's poetic. So all those wires all need to come to a place like this to connect between networks. So for example, our ISP in the office has a network, and AT&T, which is Christoph's cell provider, has a network. And in order for my email to get from my phone into Christoph's phone, all of those networks have to send those 1s and 0s across those wire pathways.
There's so much that happens in that split second that you connect. So there's really no such thing as a cloud or any type of magnanimous.
The cloud is a marketing term.
Yeah.
The thing that I find really amazing is that, like, my email is one of the millions of messages flowing through these cables. You know, that feels really abstract, but it's actually, there's a message to somebody's mom, and there's a college application, and there's a job offer.
And there's a dank meme in here somewhere.
Okay, so my email became a series of waves of light that travels over the tubes of the internet. But what if I wanted to send it somewhere really far away, somewhere on the other side of the world? We're in Newington, New Hampshire, to go to a factory that's going to show us how the internet works at long distances.
We're headed into the third layer, the internet backbone.
Oh, that's the cable highway. What's a cable highway? That's where the cables go from the factory down to the dock. The company we're going to go see, Subcom, is one of the top 4 submarine cable providers in the world. There's the ship. Hi.
Hi, I'm Elisa.
Hi, I'm Cleo. So nice
to meet you. This is the Subcom Decisive. She is a custom-built cable installation and maintenance vessel. She's 139 meters long, which is about 450 feet.
Wow.
Yeah.
The engineering and material science at work here are incredibly complex. But the basic process is actually really simple. Light goes in on one side of the ocean and comes out on the other. So as the Decisive moves across the ocean, the internet cable is going to come out the back and be laid down behind it. And sometimes it's going to be buried in the ocean floor by that machine right there. But most of the time, it's just going to lay there on the bottom of the ocean.
So these are the 2 types of cable that we have, the 2 basic types. So this one is called lightweight cable. So that's the one that we would use in the middle of the ocean. And then this piece is the stuff that we use the plow to install and actually bury. And the cable is engineered to be super strong in a lot of ways, but it is also very delicate in a lot of other ways.
The wires that carry the light waves themselves are typically made of fiberglass, literally just a continuous strand of glass about the size of a human hair. Why is it that there are so few fibers?
We're working on trying to put more fibers inside the cable to get more data into each fiber to make it so that we can send more information on what we already have.
Whoa!
So that's the cable tank. Slow, slow, we got the pipe, we got the pipe. Go and work it over, work it over. What we're doing is we're loading it into the tank in like a continuous spool, right?
Is it like 10 tons, 50 tons? Like,
oh, we're loading 10 tons in a day.
Oh my God, cool.
It's gonna end up being about 60 days of plowing.
Wow.
Yeah, so 70 days total to prep and install it. Okay, on the highway, you have 2 minutes until cable starts. What do you want?
What blows me away is just how much hard physical labor is required to make the internet work. Am I? Thank you. The craziest thing is that this cable is one of about 400 exactly like it that create a web around the Earth.
Oh.
Wow. So we're just gonna lay down the undersea cables of the internet so that we can see where they go. Christoph, you get Africa, and I'll give you part of Europe.
I love the one that goes across the Great Lakes.
You guys want to see what the internet actually looks like?
Yeah, totally do.
Yeah, okay.
Whoa.
Whoa.
That's crazy.
Oh, there's like all this metal in here. Seems like a shark could take a bite out of that pretty easily.
Same thing.
I'm so happy.
Does that happen?
Yes. So there's this video of a shark biting a
All right,
cable
now
like
for
this
Till
of the
Cursive
internet.
C.
Oh, there he is.
Cursive
He's a big
style
boy.
C.
Big boy.
Oh, doesn't
that probably hurt
taste
his
good.
teeth.
I know, poor guy.
He didn't like it. So after that video went viral in 2014, the Internet Cable Protection Committee released this report that has my favorite title of any report of all time, which is "Sharks Are Not the Nemesis of the Internet." The vast majority of faults are caused by human activity. It's like fishing, anchors,
Drilling.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
The Kingdom of Tonga has faced a cell phone and internet crisis after a fault in a fibre optic submarine cable cut its main connection with the world.
In January 2019, experts believe that an oil tanker dragged an anchor across the seabed here, which of course caused a really big problem for Tonga.
Where is the problem? If it's inland, whether it's inland in Tonga, inland in Fiji, a quick fix. But if it's in the water, it's gonna take a long, long time.
And it took 13 days to get the internet back.
13 days.
Long days and nights.
So if you live in one of these heavily connected places like the United States or many, many other parts of the world, it is very, very unlikely that an anchor cutting a part of your internet is gonna interrupt your service. But what happened in Tonga does call attention to how important this infrastructure is and how much we rely on it.
I feel like, I've never lived in a time when all of these tools were not part of my daily life.
It's kind of sad that it's not something that's available to everyone.
Yeah, exactly. There are lots of people that still don't have reliable internet access in the first place.
I wanted to find out more about how we could actually solve that problem.
So we're here in Nevada to see a company that's helping more people get access to the internet. But before we get there, I have some maps to show you.
Okay.
This is a basic map of the internet backbone in the United States. You can tell just by looking at this map why it might be that some people have a hard time getting low-cost, high-speed internet. Companies aren't as incentivized to lay fiber optic cabling where there are fewer people there to pay them for it. The same applies to low-income areas. This map shows the areas that researchers call uneconomic for companies, in red, meaning that the typical monthly costs exceed the expected monthly revenue. In many of these red areas, people only have 1 or 2 options for internet service providers, meaning that those service providers can jack up the costs. The darker the country, the more people there are paying for internet service. So there's a lot of variety around the world and even within countries in terms of who has access to the internet and at what cost. And that has a huge impact on people.
If you haven't heard about 5G, get ready for a faster internet connection.
5G could end up being 100 times faster than what we have now.
Instead of having a cell tower every few miles, 5G requires that we literally need an antenna on every square block.
Okay, hold on. What really is 5G? And why would it be so fast? Well, remember those radio waves? One of the major innovations of 5G is the ability to use higher frequency waves, because at higher frequencies, you can pack more information into each wave. Here's the catch. At higher frequencies, it's easier to block those waves. I mean, visible light is very high frequency, and I can block it with my hand. That's not a problem for fiber optic cables because they're basically long glass laser light tunnels. But 5G has to reach you wirelessly wherever you are. So that would mean they would need a lot more physical infrastructure. Of course, new infrastructure costs money. Companies have the same incentives for where to put 5G that they had before. Cities, not rural areas. rich communities, not poor ones. So 5G could be an exciting way to improve internet service for people who have fast access already. But the tech required means it's unlikely to help people who don't, at least not anytime soon. We're here to see Loon, and what they do is they send balloons into the stratosphere to provide internet access to people below via radio waves.
Loon is a connectivity company that's really focused on the unconnected and the underconnected.
Loon is owned by Alphabet, which also owns Google and YouTube, who fund this show. But Loon didn't have any say over our editorial.
So they can't actually launch a balloon today because there was a huge storm yesterday, which kind of also goes to show how finicky a lot of this stuff is. But what you have to imagine is that there's a balloon in there, and then it launches from that large red thing up into the sky, and it uses stratospheric winds to navigate to its next location, which could be on the other side of the world.
So you can see a number of balloons over here in South America, and you can see what altitude they're at, like at 60,000 feet, and basically where they're flying. This is the hatchery. This is where we build and test all of our flight systems before they go out to launch.
So this is the balloon.
So this is the balloon.
And then the part that flies with the balloon is
This flight system here and the solar panels. And the brains of it are in that box. That's being cooled by those fans right now. And so what we do is we put a ground station in a point of vantage where it can see the sky, and then from there, it can actually talk to one of our balloons. Our balloons can talk to each other, and they're talking via radio waves. And then from one of those balloons that's over the top of your phone, there's transmit and receive frequencies that are going down to your phone.
What are some of the best examples that you've been most excited about where movies
Yeah, when Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico and the Caribbean islands, we were able to fly balloons over the top of Puerto Rico, and within a couple weeks, we were able to serve about 250,000 subscribers, and is enough to know that a user on the ground was able to get out a text message or an email or a note to a loved one or something like that.
Amazon has Project Kuiper and SpaceX has Starlink. It seems like this is becoming something that more and more companies are focusing on.
Yeah, absolutely. The more the merrier, because there's a lot of people to connect.
These are all space or near space systems that use radio waves to get people access to the internet. And that's one reason why it's unlikely that they're going to replace good old cables. Radio waves and laser light and all of these different types of technology that help us get access to the internet, all in the end need to work together.
We don't seek to replace fiber or replace satellites. They're very complementary technologies.
Going into space is still a new thing. I'm pretty confident about my job prospects for at least the next while.
The internet isn't a luxury. We don't just want to connect, we need to be a part of this massive, crucial, sometimes infuriating global community. So as you check the news or message a friend or watch a YouTube video, consider this. Our connections have never been virtual. They're physical, and they're still very much a work in progress. Hey, want more episodes of Glad You Asked?
We like Marco.
No, I think Marco's spot on, and I think he's got a wonderful way of presenting the information.
I do too. It's actually really nice.
In a clear and concise fashion.
Way better than us.
Well, yeah, because we don't use whiteboards, because then we would be copied.
My name is Marco, and I'm here to help you master your money and build your wealth. And today,
we're gonna react to the video.
Okay.
In today's video, we're going to be talking about how you should never tell a car dealer that you are paying cash, especially during the sales process, and especially during the negotiation process. If you've saved up money to buy a car with cash, congratulations, that is a good thing. However, most people think that this is a positive thing and it's a negotiating chip in their favor, when in fact it's probably hurting them, making them pay more for the cost of the car.
Is he right?
Well, yeah, I guess. Yeah, to a degree. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so far everything Marco said,
We're 30 seconds in, it checks out to Papa Shevska.
32 seconds in, and I'm on board with Marco.
So new car sales account for 58% of sales at a dealership. So when most people think of car dealerships, they think that they make a majority of their money on the sale or the price of the car, which couldn't be further from the truth. Although new car sales make up 58% of sales, it only accounts for 26% of gross profit. The reason for that is because pricing is transparent now. People have phones, they have apps, they have the internet. You can find out what the price of a car is in roughly 5 to 10 minutes if you just do some preliminary research. It's not that hard.
I don't know if I agree with getting the actual price of a car is actually really hard. I mean, we've been looking.
You mean the cost of
the invoice? Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, like, it almost seems like a misnomer to suggest like you can just Google search invoice price of Toyota RAV4 and it's going to pop right up. It doesn't. You know, like everyone has estimates around what it is.
Yes.
That being said, I 100% agree with them. I mean, pricing is much more transparent. A lot of one-price dealerships, it's a lot easier to know what a dealer's.
Yes, and he's also absolutely correct that dealerships aren't making a lot of money.
Yeah.
On the sale of the new cars.
Definitely.
You know, if 58% of their volume is in new car sales, but only 26% of their gross profit is off
Which
of that.
Those numbers actually seem high to me. I was reading an NADA report. I mean, I think it's even less gross profit comes. But I mean, to your point.
Let's assume for a second that the numbers he chose to use are accurate. Well, you know, more than half of your business is producing barely a quarter of your gross profit. That speaks volumes.
Yeah.
You know, the money is not to be made selling the car itself. It's what happens after you sell the car.
Which I see he's got number 2 and number 3. Let's see what he says.
So car dealers need to make money elsewhere. So what do? They make a majority of their profits from F&I, accessories, service, fees, and parts. These are the major profit centers of a dealership. The car is simply a vehicle to get you into high-margin finance and insurance products. That's what F&I stands for. Those are the guys in the back that do your paperwork. So F&I is simply where they sell you gap insurance, wheel insurance, extended warranties, protection packages, etc., etc. And the funny thing is that 55% of these extended warranties, according to extensive research, shows that these extended warranties are never used. So you're paying for a product that you end up not utilizing. So if I was a casino and I had a 5% house edge right here at 55%, I would be salivating at those numbers.
That's spot on.
Yes, I mean we've been saying from almost day one in our videos,
you
know, that the big profit centers, parts, service, and finance and insurance, and on the vehicle side of things, it's finance and insurance, and the 55% of extended warranties that are not used. I don't know, how many times do you pay for your automobile insurance, and that's not used?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a hedge that you're paying now in case you have a problem.
And to be clear, the dealership doesn't benefit if you do or don't use your warranty.
No, it's the warranty company.
Exactly, it's the issuer of the warranty.
Yes.
That benefits. So that 5% edge is for AUL Corp, the third-party warranty provider. It's not for John Doe Mercedes-Benz.
No.
The moment they sold it at a $1,500 markup, that's when they were happy.
And that's all their profit is.
Exactly.
Yes,
Yep.
whether it gets used or it doesn't get used.
Exactly.
Yes.
Greeted by a salesman. Hey, I'm Marco with No Lube Chevrolet, where we service you with no lube. How can I help you today? I qualify you, I put you on
Kid show.
a car, you go on a test drive, you come back from the test drive. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Car Buyer, how'd you like that new car smell? You know, would you like some coffee or tea? We'll take you inside, look at some numbers. How does that sound? And we go through the sales process, and this is where the negotiation starts. Most people that are cash buyers shoot themselves in the foot at this step right here. Do not tell them you're paying cash. This is where you kill all of your negotiation power, and I'll explain why. So dealerships are incentivized. Remember, the new business model. Where does 74% of their revenue come from outside of the sale of the car? It's from F&I and other things, service packages, accessories, etc., etc. The way that dealerships make money is by literally becoming the bank. So they can either be their own lender, or they can shop out your profile and your credit score to all the different lenders in their network, and they can probably get you a pretty good score. However, this is where they make money, and this is where you have more room, and number one, to negotiate on price. You lead them to believe that you are financing with them, okay? Just pretend that you're not a cash buyer, you're putting down 10, 15%, I don't know, make up a number. So once you do that, the dealership knows that they're either going to make a flat, which is basically a commission. So when Mr. and Mrs. car buyer, end up taking a loan with dealership's Bank X is going to pay the dealership a flat fee or a commission. Or the other way that dealerships make money through financing is through loans, is through points or financial reserve. So basically all this is that you qualify for a buy rate. Say you're an 800 credit score, the loan is going to be 4%, right? That's the buy rate. The dealership will bake in numbers, they'll bake in 2 extra percent called the sell.
Are you over 25? Have a clean driving record?
I am.
No DUIs? You can drop your auto insurance rate?
Rate, and that's where they make the arbitrage. That's where they make the 2% spread. So for quick math, if you took out a $20,000 loan, financed at 60 months at 4%, and they get it to you at 6%, that 2% difference is worth $1,033 over the course of that loan in spread.
That might be true, except the dealership doesn't get 100% of that.
All right, explain that.
Okay, the reserve compensation is usually the dealership gets 70% and the bank gets 30%.
Interesting.
So, yes, there could be $1,063, and the dealership's going to make a little over $700 out of that $1,063.
That gets paid to the dealership though once the loan's signed off on, right? It's not over the lifetime of that loan.
Well, but let's say that most customers don't pay off their loan over the full course of time. They trade it in, they pay it off, they pay off a 60-month loan in 36 months. So the dealership can be charged back.
Interesting.
Okay, for uncollected future profit. So the bank gets to charge the dealership back.
Interesting. So they might get paid out immediately, but then they might get charged back.
Oh, they do. There's chargebacks every month.
Wow.
Finance people hate that.
So now you can see where the dealership would be more willing to negotiate on price is because they're making money here on the payments. Make sense? So now you're probably asking yourself, well, Marco, I don't want a loan. What does all this lead to? I thought the point of this was to buy the car with cash. Yes, so when you go into the back office and F&I, okay, where they sell you the gap insurance, the wheel insurance, all that good stuff, that's actually where you find the sheet and you basically break down every single one of the costs, okay? And we'll get into that right here. Okay, so this is where the rubber meets the road in the video. This is what you're going to do in the back office. So you are taking out a loan from either the dealer themselves, someone part of their network, or actually the manufacturer's financing arm. So like Lexus Financial, GM Financial, et cetera, et cetera. The reason you are doing this, as mentioned earlier in the video, is because you're going to beat them up on price. Once you finish the sales negotiation on the floor with the salesman, you're going to be in the back office and they're going to present to you your final numbers, okay? So typically what this looks like is you're going to see retail price. This car was $32,997. Well, you got us down to the sales price, which is now $30,000. They're going to break out your local taxes. In this case, I just assumed 10%. That's high, but just assume that for easy numbers. Then you have like doc fee, fee 1, government fee, fee 2, some BS fees that they make up, which I'll explain to you in a second here what to do. You have GAP, which they're going to build into this, GAP insurance, and then accessories and service packages, things like that. I just ran out of room on the whiteboard. So you're going to come to a total number of whatever that is, 5 figures minus your down payment, and that's going to be the amount financed. Now this is where you actually want to still continue the negotiation process, and don't be afraid to walk away if they don't meet this, okay? This is going to save you money, so pay attention. So since you're taking out the loan, first and foremost, you need to understand if this loan has an early prepayment penalty. If it does, then what I'm explaining is not going to work. It's not worth the effort. If it doesn't, which most loans shouldn't have an early prepayment penalty, then you just save yourself a bunch of money, and you can send me a commission check in the mail if you want to. Just kidding, not really. All right, so what happens is once they break all this down, you're going to say, oh, doc fee, $500, no thanks, I'm crossing that out. Government BS fee, no thanks, I'm crossing that out. Gap.
What is he referring to with government BS fee? What do you think?
I have no idea. And if I may,
you are allowed to pause whenever you want, by the way.
Okay. If I may, the argument I have here is that, honestly, there's a mistake in the whole concept. And the mistake is, as you and I tell people, is negotiate the out-the-door price. Okay? And that's done with the salesperson and the sales manager. That is not done in the finance office, because the finance guy only controls the paperwork and the financing. He does not control the pricing. So if you want to argue about fees that, and we've discussed this in other videos.
You wanna, I'll link to it.
Yeah, we'll link to it up here somewhere. Fees that are taxed are fees that can be negotiated. Fees that are not taxed are fees that can't be negotiated. And you can know that while you're still negotiating with the salesman or the salesperson or the sales manager. So that should all be done when you're working on the out-the-door price. Don't worry about the payments at that point. Don't worry about the interest rate at that point. Once you've agreed to an out-the-door price, then you can say, now let's establish what my payments will be.
Yeah, and I guess so the point is, like, accessories, you're not going to be able to negotiate that with the F&I manager.
No.
They're not involved in that. Really, they're not. So you need to...
The type of accessories that they're involved with
are the products.
Are the products
not
that they sell.
Yeah, not the, they added door guards or something like that. That was the sales manager who put that on the car.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. Negotiating the out-the-door price should happen on the sales floor or over email. Then when you get to the F&I office, I'm interested to see what Marco says here. But, I mean, he's pretty much spot on. The thing that I'll mention about government fees, however, is your point, taxable versus non-taxable. I mean, if you've got, like, local tax or local fees for registration and title and things, I mean...
They are what they are.
You can't negotiate that. Yeah.
Gap, I don't need it. I'm just saying for this example, if you want Gap, use it, whatever, I don't care. Accessories, I don't need it unless you want it. Then you have them redo the price. They're gonna say, oh, this dock fee, that's state mandated. If I charge you X, I have to charge everyone else X, otherwise I'll lose my license, blah, 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 blah. Well, guess what? For all the big brain people in the comments that are gonna leave a negative comment, this is just a negotiation chip, okay? You don't have to knock this out. All you do is you take this $500 and you take it off the price of the car. You say, okay, I'll pay the $500 fee if you charge me $29.5 for the car. Yep. Does that make sense? So you're just buying yourself more negotiation power.
But that
and
could
if you say, no, I can't do
that. All could have been done with the salesperson and the sales manager. That doesn't have to happen in the finance office. Yeah. That's why you discuss the out-the-door price. Okay, I'm sorry.
That, you know what you say? Thanks, Mr. F&I, have a great day. And you walk away with a smile on your face and you drive off into the sunset. I'm just kidding. But anyway, you're buying yourself more negotiation power. So you're still going to end up paying for the sales price of the car. You're still going to pay the same tax that you would have paid. You may buy yourself some negotiation power with these BS fees. You're not going to pay this stuff. You have them redo the total. You put down whatever you said you're going to put down, and this is the point of the video. You get your payoff amount from the lender, let's call it 30 days later or 45 days later. You say, hey, what's my payoff amount? It should simply just be these numbers, sales price, tax, whatever the amount you financed minus your down payment, and you send them a check, cash. You just paid cash for the car while still...
This summer, lease for zero
Gotta hate
down,
when that
zero
happens.
first month's payment, and zero
Yes.
security deposit.
We don't even get paid for having these ads in our videos.
No.
There is video.
Oh.
Getting all the benefits of the sales price negotiation. Does this make sense? Okay, so now that I saved you a bunch of money, this is how I've been buying cars my entire...
Okay, I don't care how he's been buying cars his entire life.
Be careful, you don't want to come across as
No,
like...
I
rude.
don't. No, because that's irrelevant to
the conversation around paying cash. Okay.
Yes.
We like Marco.
No, I think Marco's spot on, and I think he's got a wonderful way of presenting the information.
I do too. It's actually really nice.
In a clear and concise fashion.
Way better than us.
Well, yeah, because we don't use whiteboards, because then we would be copying him. But my point is, you don't have to wait 30 or 45 days. By waiting 30 or 45 days, there's a daily interest charge on your car loan.
Yeah.
Okay. So it normally takes a bank about a week to book a loan once they've gotten it from the dealership.
Okay.
So wait a week to 10 days, call the bank. What's my payoff? Send them a check. or do a wire transfer then.
Yeah.
And in essence, you've paid cash and you've financed whatever you financed, and you've paid a finance charge on whatever amount you financed for 7 or 10 days, as opposed to 30 to 45 days, and you've just saved yourself a few more dollars.
Yeah, that's a good point. Then.
Yeah. So that's my only quibble with that. Otherwise, I think, just out the door pricing. If you want to pay the loan off after, do it a week to 10 days after you've bought the car, not 30 to 45 days. Other than that, Marco's 100% spot on.
And maybe we'll have to try and get in touch with Marco. I mean, we have the out-the-door price estimator back on our website, yourautoadvocate.com/out-the-door-price. Or if you go under tools, it's right there. And I mean, that's meant to help you understand what your taxes, estimated taxes are going to be on your purchase, your title and registration fees in your state, what that's going to be. So to help you kind of, you see an internet price online, and then what's that really going to be out the door? And then to his point, use the doc fee. That's a negotiation piece.
Yes.
Work that off of the selling price. But no, I completely agree. I think this is it's a smart way to approach it, because if you do walk in and you say I'm paying cash, then you're going to end up paying more for that car because they're not going to make as much money. And now, as you've explained, the chargeback system to the dealership, you kind of got one over on it. So kudos to you. Good for you.
Well, it's not kudos to you or good for you. It's just you're trying to...
You're being strategic.
You're trying to maximize your savings.
Exactly. And there's nothing wrong with that.
No. And that's what you should be trying to do when you're spending your money. So, Marco, good job. Proud of you, my friend. And like I said, only a couple little things that I would quibble with, but other than that, 100% spot on.
You use?
Yeah, it's your cup, so I use it.
I like that. It's how you pay homage to your father.
Yeah, I drink out of your coffee mug all the time, man.
I appreciate that.
How you doing today?
I am wonderfully well, raring to go. I feel like we have let our audience down. We have not communicated with them. It seems like in days, weeks, months, perhaps even years.
Could be years. All right, today, title of today's video.
Yes.
What the heck happens when the salesman says, let me go talk to my manager, or I need to go ask the manager, I got to go to the manager's office? And I think, all of us that are contemplating buying a car in the past, we've experienced that when we go into the dealership. And nowadays, when we're doing everything virtually, we still get let me go talk to my manager about that.
Yes.
You were that manager for decades. What?
I was the man behind the curtain. That is correct.
So what goes on?
Okay, so here's the rationale behind why a salesperson has to talk to his manager. Trust. The manager does not trust the salesperson to, work as hard as possible to maximize the amount of profit. The managers feel as if the salesperson will cut to the chase and the bottom line number, right after saying, hi, my name is, okay? So sales managers are tasked by ownership to try and show gross profit. They're tasked to try and maximize the profit in a given deal.
Okay.
And so most sales managers operate out of fear, and the fear is that if they don't control everything, well then, what the heck, the profits are just going to go way down.
Okay.
And that really is a misplaced fear. Most customers would prefer to deal directly with a decision maker.
Yeah.
So that when a customer says, can you make this X amount of dollars less, the salesperson is actually the decision maker and can say yes or no. Now, the sales manager's new fear is that the owner will realize, well, what the hell do I need the sales manager for if the salesperson can make that decision?
Did you ever feel that way when you were in?
I did not. I used to empower my salespeople. I wanted my salespeople to be able to be the ones to say yes.
No, but I mean, did you ever feel like that you were disposable, but you made yourself disposable?
No, I always thought that I brought other things to the table rather than just maximizing profits in a deal. I thought I brought things to the table about how to better take care of our customers, how to find better ways to grow our business, as opposed to spending my time babysitting salespeople and working all the deals. I thought it might be more beneficial if I could come up with ways to, I don't know, figure out how to bring us more customers.
No, I understand.
So that was my mindset. But, you know, most sales managers, that's not their mindset. Their mindset is that they need to be in control. They're taught early on, you're taught early on as a salesperson, whoever has control wins. Okay, and so car salespeople don't ever want to give up control to the customer. Sales managers don't ever want to give up control to the salespeople. Finance managers don't ever want to give up control to the sales managers. So it's just this ludicrous stream of people that don't want to give up control. When in reality, we all know from having done it as long as we have, what the bottom line number really is. So rather than make it a marathon and make it challenging for the customer, empower the salespeople to be able to make the decision as to what is acceptable or isn't acceptable.
So I understand that's the why. So that's why that salesperson.
Now you want to know what actually goes on.
Like spill the bean.
Okay, spill the bean. So what goes on for the sales manager? It's like being in a chess match. Okay, when you're dealing with the salesperson who is dealing with the customer, the sales manager is always trying to be 2 or 3 moves ahead of both the salesman and the customer. So when you're negotiating a payment, say, or a price, whatever it might be, let's say you've offered the vehicle to the customer for $29,750, and the customer says, I want to be at $29,000, and the salesperson comes in and says he wants to be at $29,000. The sales manager knows that the customer would really like to be at $29,000, but doesn't really expect to get to $29,000, and he knows there's a higher number that the customer is willing to spend. So the sales manager might say something like, "Go back at $29,500, whatever the number is," and then when the customer says, "Well, I can't do $29,500, but I could do $29,250," sales manager knew that all along. And when your customer says, "I'll do $29,250," pull the trigger, make the deal. So what goes on with the sales manager is he's trying to be 2 or 3 steps ahead as to what the thinking's going to be to get a customer to finally say yes. But the other things that go on is the sales manager is going to quiz the salesman as to what's your client's mood like? How much do you think there is for movement? Are they willing to move? Are they entrenched in their position? Is there a reason they're entrenched in their position? Are they ready to move forward? Have they committed to actually doing the transaction today? Because as we've discussed before, the 3 most important letters to a salesman and a sales manager's NOW. What's it going to take to make it happen now? So are all those things in place? And if you have the commitment to move forward, then the sales manager will come up with a plan of attack to hopefully get there.
So it's really like the sales manager is kind of the immovable object in this whole process, and is also the person that, if you're the customer, is really impossible to actually get access to as well, so that you end up having to negotiate through this middleman. Is that kind of the whole game? Until of course the salesman comes back and says, I can't get the customer to move to where we need him to move to in order to be able to make a deal, at which point the sales manager has to get up off his lazy ass and go out and actually shake the customer's hand, try and be as charming as he possibly can, and move the customer to where they need to be moved to. I know that
when I used to go out and talk to customers, I used to tell them point blank, the reason I'm here now is because so-and-so just couldn't get you off the ledge. We understand you're like on the edge of the cliff and you're afraid to make that leap.
I really do not like this analogy.
And my job as the sales manager,
get you to jump off the cliff. Where are you going with this, Dad?
Just listen. My job as a sales manager is to persuade you it's okay to make that step. Okay, that as you're falling, I'm going to reach into your pocket. I'm going to take out the requisite amount of cash that I need in order to make the deal happen, and I'm going to grab you and save you before you hit the ground.
But you're going to make sure you get the money.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Are you ready to get started? And people would just look at me like I was nuts. Okay?
I think you're nuts.
It is nuts, but it worked. So really, they're on the precipice of making a decision, and my job is to. Here's my theory. The customer comes in there because they want to do something.
Sure.
Okay. And my job has always been to help convince a customer to do what it is that they wanted to do, just sometimes maybe sooner than they wanted to do it. But ultimately, they really wanted to do it. And is there any real value in spending 4 hours at the dealership you're at now, and then another 4 hours at another dealership, and 8 hours at another dealership? And so here's a truth that nobody's going to tell you about, and some of our viewers might agree and they might not. But when a customer says to a salesman or a sales manager, "I want your best price," what they're really saying to you is, "I would like to make sure that I am not overpaying, okay, that you are treating me fairly." So what they're saying is, can you share information with me that will make me comfortable knowing that I am not being taken advantage of?
Yeah.
They're not really asking for your best price. They're asking for the price that's going to make them feel the most comfortable so they can move forward with the transaction.
Something that's fair.
Okay, yeah. There's nothing wrong with fair.
And I think this whole mystique behind the manager in the office and not being able to access them and having to work through the salesperson kind of perpetuates this. It's antiquated, and
Yes.
it goes against everything that you talked about at the beginning, which is why can't we just give them the bottom line number up front, which you've talked about in myriad videos. The way that pricing for cars is done is BS and really should be revised to bring it up to date with where we are.
Yes.
But it also perpetuates this kind of gamesmanship of making a car deal where you actually, the dealer is not making it any easier. It almost builds this adversarial us versus them type approach where the salesperson is caught in the middle. And I know you've been in the salesperson role, you've been in the sales manager role. It's not pleasant.
No, I've been the hired assassin. I mean, at one store that I worked in, I was a closer. There was sales managers, there were closers, and there were salespeople. I mean, there were multiple layers, and I was the assassin. I was the closer. I was the one that had to go in and convince the customer to take the deal.
Yeah.
And truth is that I've always preached that we should make it more collaborative than adversarial. And the older I've gotten and the longer I was in the business, the less I was enthralled with the idea of having it take hours upon hours upon hours.
You just wanted to come home.
I don't need the aggravation. If we're going to end up at X, if we're going to end up at X 4 hours from now, well, why not just end up at X, 2 minutes into the goddamn transaction?
Yeah.
I mean, I'd like to have those 4 hours of my life back, and I'm sure the customer would like not to have to spend those 4 hours.
The closer you got to retirement, did you get more open to doing that, to just being like,
oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I learned a long time ago that you might as well just do what you're ultimately going to do up front rather than take all that time to get to ultimately. If you know in your mind, if you know in your heart of hearts that ultimately you're going to get the $29,000,
just go there.
Just go there. Why put everybody through the aggravation? That's what That's the reason that people hate buying a car, because we in the industry make it difficult for them.
Yeah.
And we now, being on the outside helping customers, we're ultimately the customer for our clients, and we know how difficult it is, and we know how frustrating and aggravating it is, and everybody's learning that it really doesn't need to be that way. It's just dealerships choose to make it that way.
Well, and you've got to imagine, they preserve some profit that way. They I don't want to say they take advantage of people, but some people don't get to that bottom line number because they don't feel comfortable enough negotiating. And so from a dealership perspective, I get it. They're saying to themselves, sure, the process stinks, but we still make more money this way.
Yeah, well, that's because there's nothing immoral about a profit, okay? And a profit is what allows the dealership to stay in business. Nobody's building these facilities with the hopes of, well, I don't know, losing enough money to have to close them down. I mean, yeah, they're being built because they're profit-driven retail outlets. But you can establish the profits that you need and minimize the pain in getting to those profits with a different business model.
And that's what you've got to think, this whole what goes on in the manager's office question. Hopefully this video is obsolete 5, 10, and exactly 5, but maybe 10 years from now, this video should be totally pointless, because by then we shouldn't have to go through the manager's office. You've got to imagine that if dealerships do want to continue to be profitable into the future, they need to make it a less painful process, which could take us out of business. Because what do? We do the pain for our customers. We're the ones beating our heads up against the wall to make deals, as the advocate for our clients. But you've got to imagine that eventually there'll be this tipping point, and I think we see it with our business, with Carvana, with the CarMaxes of the world, moving away from this, what's going on in the manager's office? Like, why can't I talk to Ray? It's like, no, you can, and you can get an answer, and here's the price.
Well, and oftentimes the other thing that's going on in the manager's office is we're trying to determine what it is that we're going to eat for either lunch or dinner or our afternoon snack. Ooh, is it time for a fresh cup of coffee from Dunkin'? Things like that. There are important things going on in the manager's office that have absolutely nothing to do with car deals.
I'm sure, like, during March Madness, the manager's office must be the most fun place to be. I mean, it's just everyone looking at their brackets and the office pool and things like that. There's no car deals being made, I take it.
Oh no, there's car deals being made, but there's thankfully managers have 2 monitors, so one monitor's on the games and one monitor is, well, I don't know, working a car deal.
Hey, well, if you have questions, if you want to know more of the ins and outs of the business, leave a comment down below. I'm more than happy to talk to Pops about it and get his take on it. This one's always been really interesting to me. I even remember sometimes when I'd come visit you, bring your kid to work type of day situation. I couldn't believe how crazy busy it was in your office. Like 24/7, you would have 3 people in there talking to you all at the same time. I had no clue how you actually got any work done, which also kind of, again, perpetuates how dumb this setup is, because you have all your salespeople that then have to be routed through one decision maker. It's really dumb. That's why it takes 4 hours. Yeah, if you got more questions about the stupidity of the car business, and also maybe some of the innovations, leave them down below. We'll address them, we'll talk about them.
Are you ready for our outro?
Hit them with it.
Okay. We're done, folks.
I
hope you enjoyed it. Yeah.
We can make a t-shirt. It just says done, and when you're like with your face on it or something, right?
Yeah. I see we'd have to give those away for free.
I'd buy one. See you, Dad.
See ya.
Okay, here we have the integral going from 0 to 2 of x to the t's power dt. And you might be thinking that we're just going to integrate this right here. No, we are going to say this right here is equal to 3, and we are going to find out for what x will make this equation true. And let me tell you, this is going to be a very, very hard equation, because not only we have to use calculus, but also the Lambert W function with some technical part. And of course, most importantly, I came up with this. And I'm pretty sure 99% of the world population would know how to solve this. But anyway, let's see how we can deal with this. First off, we will have to know that this integral is in the t world, and the x is just like a constant, so we can actually just integrate this, no problem on that. And let me just remind you guys on the side, when we integrate, let's say 17, which is just a constant, raised to a t's power dt. This right here will give us 17 to the t's power over ln of the base 17. So the exponential function, when you integrate that, you keep it, but you divide it by ln of the base. So in this case, we will just have x to the t's power divided by ln x. And that's the calculus part. And then of course, we'll just have to plug in 0 to 2, and then make this equal to 3. So that's what we have now. That's the calculus part. Remember, we are in the t world, so we will have to plug in the 2 into the t. So first we get x to the second power, and then minus plugging 0 in here, and x to the 0th power. And both of them have the ln x, so I'm just going to put that down right here like this, and this is equal to 3. Okay, and then perhaps we can write this down, x to the 0th power as 1, and maybe we can multiply the ln x on both sides, because usually we don't like to see fractions in the equation. So we are getting x squared minus 1 being equal to 3 ln x. Now, how in the world do we solve this kind of equations? Right? Newton's method? No. I know it works, but let's try the Lambert method with the Lambert W function. And here's the idea, like how do we know to use the Lambert W function? When we have a power function at x to some power, and then natural log or exponential e to the whatever, sometimes the Lambert W function might be able to help us out. So just keep that in mind. I'm not saying all the time though, just keep that in mind. And I would like to write down the most important note for you guys when we use the Lambert W function. I'll put it down right here. And I know you guys like me to draw the fish, so I will give you guys the fish. Suppose we have a fish in the front. This is not alpha, this is a fish. It's a happy face. Times e, like the special constant e, raised to the same fish. Alright. If this and that are the same, and once we apply the Lambert W function, guess what? We will just get the fish back. And this right here is the most important part of using the Lambert W function. So with that being said, we kind of want to introduce the e to help us out a little bit, don't you think so? Alright, so what we can do is, let's just do e to this power and then e to that power. Alright, cool. On the left hand side, we have x squared minus 1 in the power. Let's break them apart. So we will get e to the x squared times e to the negative 1. That's the jet. And then for the right hand side, we have the e and ln, but we cannot cancel it out yet. We will have to first put the 3 back here to become the power, and then cancel the e and then ln. So the right hand side gives us x to the third power. Alright, so now we are working with power and also exponential. Alright, and you see, we kind of want to have the fish and fish on the same side. I want to have the function part being on the same side. So let me divide the x to the third power on both sides, and let's kick the number to the other side. And this is what we are going to get. Divide this to the other side, we will get x to the negative 3 power. And then we have e to the x squared power. And then we divide this on both sides. 1 over e to the negative 1 is e to the first power. So I'm just going to write this down as just e. Cool. I think we are making a good progress. Notice, here we have x squared, but this is x to the negative 3. We don't want a negative 3. We want to have this right here being 2 as well. How can we make that happen though? Well, this is a power. So what we can do is just go ahead, raise both sides to the negative 2 over 3 power. And of course we do it to both sides. Because this way, we can distribute the power and inside just a multiplication. So we will just get x. Negative 3 times that, we get positive 2. Very nice, huh? And then when we distribute the power, we do x squared times that, so we get e to the negative 2 over 3 x squared power. And this right here gives us e to the negative 2 over 3. I know it looks pretty crazy now. Yeah, it has been crazy like maybe right here already. Alright, that's pretty good. But now, we need to have the negative 2 over 3. We're almost there. So what can we do? Yeah, just multiply that on both sides. We need a negative 2 over 3. Let's multiply negative 2 over 3 on both sides. And then, ladies and gentlemen, here we have the fish, and then here we have the same exact fish. Therefore, we can just go ahead and take the happy Lambert W function on both sides. Like this. Cool. And now, check this out. On the left-hand side, this and that are the same. So, just like that, we know we will just get negative 2 over 3 x squared. Done. On the right-hand side, you might notice this is very interesting. Because this and that are the same. So by this again, hey, we should just get negative 2 over 3 right here as well, right? And guess what? Let's continue. Divide this on both sides, we get x squared is equal to 1, and do the usual business, we are saying x shall be plus 1 minus 1. Done! No, this is not correct. This is not correct. Why? If we put 1 back to the original equation, this is an equation, which is the 1 in here, 1 to the t's power is just always equal to 1, right, in the real world. So this right here does not work. And now you might be wondering, how did this process give us 1 for the answer though? Well, I'll tell you, it's because it's right here. When we had x squared minus 1 is equal to 3 times ln x. If you look at just this equation, right, nothing else, then let me tell you, 1 is indeed a legitimate answer to this equation, because you will get 0 on the left-hand side and also 0 on the right-hand side. But you always have to refer back to the original equation to see what we are trying to do and then get rid of the 1. In fact, 1 wouldn't apply once we get to here because we get ln 1, which is 0 on the bottom. That doesn't work either. And then negative 1 is just outrageous, so let's not even talk about that. So why exactly did this go wrong though? Did the Lambert W function fail? Because where's my answer, right? So hopefully by now you guys should see why this is hard. And of course, I have the answer for you guys, don't worry. I would like to tell you guys this. On the left hand side, it's okay. I will just write it as negative 2 over 3 x squared. That's okay. On the right hand side, I would like to tell you guys with some more notes on the side right here. Earlier, when we just look at the Lambert W function of negative 2 over 3 e to the negative 2 over 3 power, this right here will indeed give you negative 2 over 3 because this and that are the same. Good. But this is the so-called principal value or the principal branch. It's kind of like saying the first answer. And to make the principal branch clear, usually we say W with a subscript 0 here, alright? And that's why they use on Wolfram Alpha as well. But unfortunately, the principal value does not help us to solve this equation. So what do we do then? Just go to another branch. Another branch. And let me tell you, we will actually still end up with another real solution once we get to another branch. So what's the other branch? I would like to tell you it's the negative 1 branch. And we get negative 2 over 3 e to the negative 2 over 3. You can use Wolfram Alpha for this, and I have the answer written down over there already. This right here is approximately negative 1.429. So this is the answer that we are going to use right here. Alright? And now you might be wondering, why? Why does this give you two answers? Let me tell you. Pay close attention to the input. This number, if it's in between of, well, let me write it down. This number, which is negative 2 over 3 e to the negative 2 over 3, if this is in between of -1 over e and 0, then we are going to have two answers, right? We are going to have two answers. And let me just tell you guys that this right here, right, this number right here is approximately 0.342. Just kidding, it's negative. And this number right here, -1 over e, is negative 0.368. All right. So that's why you see this is indeed between this and that. That's why it will give you two answers when we use the number w function. And you might be wondering, are there any more answers? Yes. If you go to the other branches, such as the -2 branch or such as the first branch, you end up with a lot more answers. And in fact, they are all complex answers. So yeah, it's really crazy, huh? I would like to keep the answer in the exact form, so let me just write it as w with a subscript -1, and then you really have to write this down as how it is, which is -2 over 3 e to the -2 over 3, like so. And finally, let's just do everything in one go. I'm going to multiply the reciprocal on both sides and then take the square roots on both sides. So x is equal to, we will have that big square root. And we should have the plus or minus whenever we take the square roots on both sides. But we are staying in the real world. We cannot have the negative for the base for the exponential. So x will just be positive. So I'll just erase that, okay? And then once we bring this to the other side, it will be -3 over 2. And then this right here is the number w function, -1 branch. And then -2 over 3. Wow, this is just so beautiful. -2 over 3 here. And yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, this right here is the answer. What am I talking about, right? It's just a bunch of letters and like numbers and symbols. Well, how big is exactly this? I would like to tell you, this right here is approximately this right here. X is approximately 1.464, so on, so on, so on. Alright? And you might not be comfortable why we have a negative inside of the square root, but remember, the blue part, it's actually a negative. So negative times negative, we get the positive, so we are all good. Yeah, let me know what you guys think about this right here. For more videos like this one, I have another one for you guys over there, and also check out the video in the description. Yep, that's it.
I saw this tweet the other day. Nice hobby. Would be a shame if you overcommitted to it, monetized it, and then lost all joy you had in it around the same time that it became an indispensable pillar of your identity. Who'd do that? How to monetize your creativity without social media. So that tweet obviously outlines the risks that are associated with making money off your creativity, but the rewards are pretty snazzy as well. I've been making money off creative work for the past 8 years, and in this video are some of the things that I've learned. And for the record, this is the money that I make off my creativity excluding social media. Because given that most people, statistically speaking, do not have a monetizable web presence, saying things like sponsorships and AdSense would be pretty irrelevant. Probably the worst time to mention this now, but this video is sponsored by Shopify, but more on them later. Just before we start, this is just what's worked for me, so it might not work for you, and remember that this is an overview. But I will cover things like how much to charge for freelancing, products, how to cold email clients, how to DM people that you want to work with, and even some places to start your exciting paperwork journey. Hold on to your hats. We're diving in. Part 1. Identify your skills, present or future. So to monetize our creativity, we're first going to have to figure out what we can do. This feels like a nice place to start. Here are the main skills that I monetize. I just split them up into buckets. Visual. This includes illustration, art, graphic design. Film. This is videography, shooting, directing, editing, and occasionally producing. And ideas, which has ideation, creative direction, and writing. So on a piece of paper, just list out some of the skills that you have. Don't worry about monetizing them just yet. We'll get to that later. Now, if you're at the start of your creative journey, you might be like, oh man, I don't have any skills to monetize. Don't worry. worry, this is cool and normal. If this is you, just write down the skills that you would like to monetize in the future, the skills you want to develop. Obviously, your journey will take a little longer than somebody who has already learned that skill, but that's just the way of the world, man. But yeah, there are ways to fast track that learning process, so we'll go through them later. So now that you've got your list of skills, we're going to make a second list. Who buys those skills? Who will trade what you can do for their money? You can obviously do this with multiple skills, but I'll give you one example, and that's with illustration. Underneath illustration, I would have, where does illustration get bought? Posters, packaging, animation character design, album covers, mascots, children's books, and so on. The list keeps going. Basically anywhere that you see illustration. This isn't a test, by the way. Feel free to use Google, or feel free to use this comment section. If you're like, oh, I actually don't know where films get bought, then there'll definitely be people in the comment section who can help you. What we're doing here is opening ourselves up to the possibility that our creativity is something that can be monetized. This is the first and a very large barrier in monetizing your creativity, because I think a lot of us have been conditioned into thinking our art and our music are hobbies. A lot of people who don't work in creative industries might feel like only the 1% of the 1% actually make money, but the reality is creative work is growing year on year, and there's enough money to go around, so why not you? All right, so now we got a rough idea of what you can do, what you might want to be able to do in the future, and some places where those skills get bought. Let's talk about actually making the money now. Part 2, freelancing. Quick definition, selling your creative skills to a business or another sole trader on a contractual project basis is called freelancing. Yay! The irony being, sometimes you never feel that free when you're doing it. Assuming that you have monetizable skills that are ready to go, the next questions are, how do I get clients and how much do I charge them? Two big questions, and anytime you Google these, you'll always get one of those condescending articles that's just like, clients are everywhere. As for how much to charge them, however much you think you're worth. Thanks. I'll give you real figures in this video, don't worry. So in terms of where to find clients, there are sites that have public gig postings, things like Upwork, Fiverr, LinkedIn. I've personally never used these, but I have close friends who have used Upwork and found a lot of success through it. My business partner, for example, he used to get a lot of clients from Upwork, and they were good clients as well. One even took him all the way to Bermuda. For what it's worth, he was in videography, DOP and producing. But given that I haven't used gig posting sites, I'll just tell you what I've done. One, I've approached people online whose work I've liked. For people making work out there who I admire, who I'm just like, oh man, I reckon you might have a little bit too much work on your hands and I might be able to help you with it, I've sent them a DM, and sometimes it works out, sometimes you get work. For example, if you're a video editor and you know that one of your favorite YouTubers is starting to launch a podcast, you might send them an email or a DM and say, hey, I noticed that you're launching a podcast, I'd love to be an editor. Here's my rates. In terms of what to say in your DM, this is a message that I used in the past. This guy is now a good friend of mine, but when we started working together, I was just a dude who could make dodgy little 2D animations, and he was looking for a 2D animator. Hey man, love your work. I noticed you were looking for an animator for your audio rants. What kind of animation are you thinking? I do 2D kind of Mambo-y looking stuff, and I'd love to give it a shot if you were keen. What I'd say when you send DMs to people online is tailor it to them. This guy seems super casual, so I decided I'd be a bit casual. Obviously, other people are more on the warm regards end of that spectrum. Just use your intuition when talking to people, and if in doubt, opt on the side of professional. It's a lot easier to step down tonally than it is to step up after you've been like, yo dude, I'd love to draw your merch, bro. And they hit you back with a, hi Jessica, thanks for your email. And now you're all like, ah, shit. 2, the second way that I've got clients. This one's a little bit harder, but it's been very, very fruitful. So instead of going to clients directly, I've gone to advertising agencies. The reason is the advertising agencies have already done all the hard work in sourcing the clients. If they're a good agency, they'll have clients for days. So instead of going to their book, you just go to them. Because usually advertising agencies are the place where they say yes way too often, even when they're at capacity, and they're often the places where they will get freelancers in just to get things done in order to keep those clients happy. When you email them, you can position yourself as a solution for when things get a bit too hectic, or just as a go-to for when they don't want to do some work. Here's a typical email that I would send, and like I said in the start, just keep in mind that there might be big cultural differences. I'm in Australia, which is a bit more of a casual country, so just keep that in mind. Hi, their name. My name is Campbell Walker, and I'm a DOP/video editor. I just finished a big project, and now I'm looking to freelance with companies that I admire. I'm a big fan of the work you do over at Agency. In particular, I love the production on Ad Example. If you're ever looking for a DOP or an editor, I would love to offer my services. Here's a link to my showreel. My rate is typically $1,000 a day, but this is of course negotiable depending on the job. If you have any questions, I would be happy to chat through anything and everything. Cheers. my name. Please consider the environment before printing this email. That last bit was a joke. When was the last time you saw someone print an email? Feel free to literally copy that directly. I'll put a copy-paste link in the description. Make it easy. With both of these tactics, DMing people and emailing advertising agencies, I would expect to have a hit rate of about 1 in 50. So for every 50 messages I send out, I will get 1 client. This can get a bit tricky if you're trying to send 50 DMs at once on something like Instagram, where you'll get blocked for sending too many. But if you space it out over a couple of days, yeah, should work. As for how much I charge, this is the big question, isn't it? People are always asking this. And please keep in mind, all of these figures are in Australian dollars. Australia's an expensive place to live. It's also a place where you have a high minimum wage, so these figures might seem high to you. They also might seem low to you. I don't know. These are my exact rates over the past years. I'm not shy about talking about money. Let's just do it. When I was 23, I didn't have many hard skills, but I found myself working at an agency, and I knew that I could work on pitches, which is something that agencies would take on and often not have the workload for. So I'd charge $300 a day to do pitches and copywriting. Looking back, I actually think it was a bit too much. I think I was overcharging for what I could do. At 24, I had a few more skills. I'd used a camera, I could video edit it, and I would charge $40 an hour, which worked out to a little bit more than $300 a day. It was 2015, and in the sluggish Australian media landscape, it was an uphill battle. At 25, I was getting a lot more into the production side of things, so less on agency and selling and more into cameras and video editing and directing. And so what I'd do instead of charging a daily or an hourly rate is I'd charge a flat rate for a whole shoot plus the edit. So for example, a 1-day shoot where I'd edit all of the rushes into an ad or a couple of ads, that would be $5 grand. Over the next couple of years, I would stay as kind of like a one-man production team, and I'd charge between $500 and $1,000 a day. So I'd write the ads, film the ads, direct the ads, and then edit the ads. After that though, my time started getting scarce. This is when my comics and my art started taking off online, and I was like, oh, there are other ways to make money. Did you guys know about this? Because I didn't, but I am quite risk averse, especially with money, so I'd keep all the production contacts, and I kept upskilling, and then I started doing this thing called say no with a price. So when a job came in and I didn't want to do it, instead of saying no directly, I would say, this is going to cost $2 grand a day. And if that was too high and they said no, no harm done. But if they really wanted the work, then yeah, I got paid a bunch, and I got to start experimenting with higher rates. After saying no with a price and getting even more skills, I just started saying a blanket $2,500 a day. Sometimes it gets higher, sometimes it gets lower. But yeah, that's a snapshot of the evolution of my day rate. Does that help? Maybe. Does it surprise anybody? I don't think it would. Who knows? Before we get to part 3, I just want to talk about today's sponsor, and I do actually think that this is extremely relevant to the video, so this isn't just like a force-fit sponsor. I turn down like 95% of sponsors, and I only pick ones that I think are relevant to the channel, and also ones that I use, because Shopify, hell yeah, I use that. Seriously. Shopify is an all-in-one, easy-to-use online commerce platform. Anyone can use it, regardless of your technical ability, to start, grow, and maintain, and scale a business, baby. Boom. Shopify, most of us know, lets you sell online, but it also lets you sell in person and on social media. Ruthless.com, the place where I have all of my apparel, art, prints, all of that sort of stuff, that is built on Shopify. Actually, fun fact, when I switched to Shopify, my sales pretty much doubled, so that's bonkers. Shopify's been a huge pivotal piece in how I personally monetize my art. They got plugins, resources, and support from your first sale to full scale. Tagline, baby. And they support more entrepreneurs than anybody else in the world. Millions and millions of people in 175 different countries. Big flex. But most importantly, I can actually say that I use this and it has helped me make art my full-time job. I've really been looking for the perfect sponsor to grow this channel with for a while, and I'm glad to say it's Shopify. I know this is the ad, but yeah, I legit recommend them. Part 3, selling your art. I thought I'd stick this section in here because I imagine a lot of the people watching this might be makers of some kind. I'll use painting as mine, but I imagine this applies to a range of crafts: furniture making, millinery, tattoo, embroidery, stained glass, wedding dress couture. Pick your poison. Let's dance. So remember earlier when I talked about the people who were like, oh, this is all well and good for people with monetizable skills, but what about me? I can't do anything. Here is how I crossed that divide. It was with muraling, something that I had never done, which now I have done. But when I hadn't done it, I was like, damn, there are so many murals. How are these people getting started, getting walls, and getting paid? I didn't know who to ask, so I just kind of came up with my own plan. I went around to local businesses and I said, hey, here's the offer. Free murals, just pay for paint. If they didn't like the mural, we could always paint back over it, mitigating their downside. So at best, they would get a good mural, and at worst, they would lose $100 in paint. A lot of local businesses were surprisingly keen on this. And for me, it would only cost me a couple of days of my life of free labor, but I would end up with paint supplies and a ladder and a whole lot of muraling experience. And for the record, I did this while working a full-time job, so I know that that's possible, but I didn't, like, for example, have kids or anything at the time, so I imagine that would complicate things. I know that time is a huge factor when upskilling, so yeah, just remember that. After about 7 of these free murals, I started to charge, and I had no idea what to charge at the start, so I very much undercharged. I remember there was this huge wall, and it took me multiple days in the sun, and I was like, I don't know, $600? I think my hourly rate ended up being like $10 an hour, and I was like, that was not the right price.
The price is wrong.
But my pricing strategy was pretty basic. Always charge higher than the last job. So if I charged $800 for 15 square meters, then the next job would be $1,000. And don't overcharge. Because I really wanted the work, I didn't want to lose it by throwing out some crazy high figure and having everybody be like, okay, see ya. I think the last wall I did was a couple grand, but the pandemic has put a stop to my muraling. I'm pretty keen to pick it back up, by the way. If anybody out there wants a mural, just let me know. For other crafts, I know that my partner will charge things out hourly. So if she's doing a tattoo, it'll be $120 an hour. And then I got other friends who are like music engineers who just charge themselves out by the day. So they'll be like, oh, I'm $800 a day if you want me. I got another friend who makes wedding dresses and she charges a project fee. So she works it out with the cost of materials and the cost of labor and then a profit margin. I mean, that's grossly oversimplified, but then at the end she'll be like, okay, that's a $4,000 wedding dress or something like that. You get the idea, you're selling an artwork. But what if that artwork becomes a product? Part 4, products. This is the process of selling products that you have created to customers. I'll break this into pricing, selling online, and selling offline. Making products. Personally, as an illustrator, I like making clothes and prints, but you could be different. My friend Lil, for example, makes these cool conversation cards. My friend Zach makes wine, and my friend Bianca makes NFTs. The key distinction between products and the other ways to monetize your creativity is that anybody can be your customer, not just one business or somebody who's commissioning your work. And then you got selling products. Extremely generally speaking, the way that you price a product is you add up all of your costs, including labor, then you add a profit margin, and that is as low as you want your price to go. If you don't know what profit margin to add, I would recommend checking out your industry standard on a site like Ready Ratios. I'll leave a link in the description. So here we have, if you make leather goods, you know that most of your peers are working on a 44.4% profit margin. It's a lot of fours. This chart isn't gospel, it's obviously just a reference. So if your strategy is to price your product at a premium, then go up. Or if your strategy is to undercut people, then go down. So selling things online. Personally, I have my own shop. This isn't the sponsored part, this is just the truth. Building this website is the simple part. The not so simple part is getting traffic to that website. If this is an issue, you might want to host your product on a website that already has traffic. Let me know if you are looking to build your own shop, because I can make a full video about this. I love geeking out on it, man. It'll be sick. And then there is selling your product in a physical space. Having an actual shop in the real world is really risky and really expensive. And this might be what you want to do, but if it's not, here are a couple of alternatives to that. Market stalls at your local markets, just set up a stall. I've done this a bunch. Usually there's a rental fee for a stall, and then any money you make above that is yours. Tailor it to your product. If you make handmade ukuleles, maybe like a maker's market. And if you make board games that go for 14 days, then maybe try a Comic-Con type thing. There's consignment sales. So this is the first way that me and Felicity ever sold our bum bags before we even sold them online. There was this local shop that sold vintage clothes and a bunch of things like that, and they would stock our bum bags, and we didn't have to pay for rent, and they didn't have to pay for the bum bags, but if a bum bag sold, then we'd split the cash. The shop kept 30% of the sale, and we kept 70%. Other shops that we talked to would buy things wholesale, so they would buy all of our stock at once for 50% of the recommended retail price. So our deal was we'd get the cash up front, and their deal was they would get a little bit more of the profit. You get the idea. And then just think outside the box. How substitute teacher was that? But I do mean it. There are overlooked places like cafes and pubs. If you, for example, make designer keep cups, selling them in a cafe is exactly where your market is. You get sales, they look cool for supporting people who make stuff. Life's good. All right, so that's selling products. Let's talk about the exciting stuff. Part 5. Paperwork. As you monetize your creativity, don't forget about the paperwork and the taxes. It might sound boring, especially if you're more creatively inclined, but it can be a very expensive mistake. I didn't know how to pay my taxes when I first started working, and eventually it caught up to me in the shape of a 50 grand tax bill. Shit nearly ruined me, bro. I was cooked. So yeah, don't do what I did. Something that my business partner always likes to remind me of is neglecting your paperwork is how most small businesses go under. A 50 grand tax bill is enough to financially ruin a lot of people, and it nearly did did for me. Thankfully, everything's in order now. If you want an even more extreme example of that, check out Will Smith. He got stung with an $1 million tax bill. Now that is some spicy debt. The information on paperwork is definitely localized, so I can really only talk about the Australian experience, but a good place to start your research is having the answers to the following questions. Do I have to register to conduct business in my country? Does my country make a distinction between sole traders, partnerships, and companies? Does this registration cost money? Are there recurring payments to running a business? That question right there, if you're Australian, yes there are, and it stings. It stings once a quarter like a little financial scorpion. Oh, my wallet. What bookkeeping and accounting software or method will I use? Personally, we use Xero. How often will I reconcile my books? How will I pay tax? What in my life is tax deductible? Personally, I use an app called HubDoc, which connects straight to Xero, so you can take photos of your receipts immediately and you don't have to carry them around with you. I definitely recommend getting on top of that stuff early. Now, all of these questions might sound scary to you, but the alternative is way freakier. It might take you about a day to find all of those answers, but you will thank yourself later. And for the record, yeah, I no longer avoid tax bills. So there it is, my overview of how to monetize your creativity without social media. Let me know if you got some other approaches as well. I am genuinely curious. If you want me to go into detail on anything, just let me know in the comments. And if you want to help me monetize my creativity, then do check out my book. It's a guide to mental clarity, complete with a whole bunch of wacky illustrations. It's helped a lot of people, so if you want a copy, there's a link in the description. And a final thanks to Shopify as both a sponsor and an organic part of this video. They're helping me grow my channel at the moment, and I'm pretty grateful. Anyway, have an amazing day and good luck. Catch ya.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to a brand new video here on the Brugly channel. Yes, you actually read the title right. I'm doing a Backrooms iceberg for the next couple of uploads because Brugly Summer Spectacular is starting a week from today, so I figured I'd upload this iceberg right before it so I could get everybody in the mood for some more Backrooms content, right? If you're new here, I'm Brugly, nice to meet you. I'm a Backrooms YouTuber, and that's all you need to know. So this will be a 3 or 4 part iceberg, probably 4 since I don't like to make my videos too long. And in this video, I'm going to be going over the first 2 tiers of the iceberg. This specific one is the newest iceberg I could find over on Reddit, so there shouldn't be any other videos on it that I'm aware of, but yeah. Sit back, chillax, grab some cookie dough bites, some popcorn, some candy, and get ready for the first 2 tiers of the Backrooms iceberg. Let's get into it, shall we? So this is the iceberg that I'm going to be going over. If you want to check it out yourself, I'm going to leave a link in the description. And I think it's got the perfect balance of known stuff and unknown stuff, and it's the perfect one that I found. Now the first several entries are pretty basic, so I'm not going to go in depth like a crazy person would, but I am going to start with the first entry, which is Level 0. Backrooms Level 0 is easily the most famous Backrooms level on all of the wikis and in general. You've probably seen the picture of it. If you haven't, I'd like to know what rock you've been living under so I can test it out myself. And you probably at least have some idea of what it is. But it is the first Backrooms level, and it was posted on 4chan many years ago. It's really the picture that kickstarted the entire Backrooms lore, so I appreciate it for that. Pretty much, if you don't know, it's an infinite hellscape of yellow walls, annoying lights that are buzzing, and soaking wet carpet. Now, for a lot of these things on the iceberg, I have made full videos about them, explaining them, and I'm going to leave a link to all of them that I go over in the description. But what I just said about Level 0 is pretty much the entirety of the level. You get the gist of it. Lights buzzing is next up, and it's also a pretty basic one. It's about the fluorescent lights in Level 0, and actually some other levels of the Backrooms as well, that have this really annoying buzz to them, man. I mean, it would drive me insane. To me, it just adds this horror factor that it would just drive me insane. And just knowing that there's constant buzzing, it just makes you feel more alone, in my opinion. But yeah, that's what light buzzing means. Before the video gets started, I want to thank the sponsor of today's video, Gemstone Legends. Gemstone Legends is an awesome fantasy puzzle RPG game where you match gems together in order to upgrade and enhance your team of heroes in order to defeat enemies and stop the cataclysm. What's great about Gemstone Legends is that it isn't just your typical matching game. You can level up your team of heroes in order to collect artifacts and upgrade statistics, and in order to form the strongest team possible. And to me, upgrading your stats and finding new artifacts really enriches the gameplay experience and makes the game extremely addictive to play. Also, the game has dragons. But don't just take my word for it, Gemstone Legends has a 4.6 star rating on the Android Play Store and almost a perfect 5-star rating on the App Store. Speaking of playing the game, you can find me in-game under the name Brugly, if you want to get destroyed, that is. So with all that said, you can download Gemstone Legends using the first link in the description below, or you can scan the nifty QR code right here in the video, and by doing that, new players will automatically get a super bonus pack, and the pack contains a really cool hero named Moralia. And you'll get this pack once you open the game and complete the tutorial. So download the game with my link below or scan the QR code, and by doing so, you'll have an awesome game to play and you'll be supporting the Brugly channel. It's a win-win, what can I say? Thank you to Gemstone Legends for sponsoring this video, and let's get back to it, shall we? 4chan is the next entry, and it's referring to the original Backrooms picture and post, which was posted on 4chan back in 2018. This is the earliest screenshot of the entry I could find. There might have been one before, but this is the earliest one I could find. It was originally just posted as a creepy liminal space picture that doesn't feel quite right, is the title, and it just feels off, but we've now seen what it has grown into, and I'm super happy it did. The next entry is no clipping, which is the process of glitching through an object in real life. Now, you've actually probably done this before in video games, where you can see through a map by glitching into the side of a wall or through the floor, and you can kind of just see through the rest of the map. But no clipping in this regard refers to the main way of traveling inside of the Backrooms lore to the different levels. If you want to get to a level that's after level 0, you're going to have to no clip through a wall in level 0. And by doing that, you'll be sent through a space-time wormhole to the next level. Now, no clipping can do much more powerful things than this, like you can just pass up 100 levels at once if you know where to no clip, but yeah, it's just pretty much just glitching through something to get to a different place. Liminal spaces are spaces that are not meant to be stayed in for a long time. In fact, it quite literally means transitional space, but of course, you probably knew that. There's probably been 800 people that have said that, and this phenomenon of liminal spaces tends to make pictures of these places extremely creepy, almost like you shouldn't be seeing it, and this translates to many of the Backrooms levels because the majority of them are considered liminal spaces. Spaces that you feel are just wrong to look at, like this picture for example. You know, it just feels unnatural in a way, unnerving in a way. Of course, you know, it's all relative, and you could be thinking to yourself right now, how stupid is this guy? This is just a normal picture. But like I said, it all depends on what angle you take it from. But liminal spaces in and of themselves are a horror-ish genre, but couple them with the idea of the Backrooms being alone by yourself in an unknown universe, and you've got a pretty scary concept. The Backrooms Causes Insanity is the next entry, and I think it's literally just talking about the fact that Backrooms causes people to go insane while they're stuck there. Which is understandable because you're going to be stuck alone in a place that you've never been to, with no food, water, and weird noises coming from everywhere. I think I'd go insane too. I'm pretty sure the name of this entry explains it. The Backrooms Causes Insanity, because it does. The last part of Tier 1 is the Backrooms subreddits, which of course is talking about the Reddit page for the Backrooms. There's lots of unofficial ones, but this one is talking about the biggest one. It's got over 185,000 members on it, and there's a lot of neat stuff that goes up over there. But it's mainly just funny memes, and I'm gonna be honest with you, they're pretty funny, not gonna lie. But yeah, if you want to explore some more of the fan-submitted kind of stuff, go check out the Backrooms subreddit. It's an interesting read, to say the least. Now it's Tier 2 time, starting with the first 9 levels. It's talking about the first 9 levels in the Backrooms lore. Technically, it's 8 levels since level 0 also counts as a level, but level 0, the tutorial zone, level 1, the habitable zone, level 2, pipe dreams, level 3, electrical station, level 4, abandoned office, level 5, terror hotel, level 6, lights out, level 7, thalassophobia, and level 8, the cave system. Now, some people only count these first 9 or so as the actual real Backrooms levels, the real canon. But as I've said before, there isn't a concrete canon, which makes it interesting. You know, you get everybody's opinion. I've made individual videos explaining these first 9 levels in depth, but if you're lazy like I am, and you don't want to go find them on the channel, I'm just going to speed run through explanations of them now. Level 0 has yellow walls and buzzing lights and wet carpet. And it's the first one you're typically going to no-clip to, from reality that is. Level 1 is a parking garage with no outside contact, wet puddles, and it has the first few outposts in the backrooms. Level 2 is full of dangerous hallways with creatures running around all the time and loud noises coming from machinery. Level 3 is also a dangerous hallway level, but this time there's prison barred off passages that you can't get to, and there's also electrical monitoring rooms. Level 4 is a huge office building, and it's the home of the first almond water source in the backrooms, which you'll figure out in a second is a huge part of it. Level 5 is a hotel with a real business running inside of it. It's decorated with a old era decoration style, and it's actually scary because the beast of level 5 lurks around. But yeah, it's pretty much a hotel. Level 6 is a series of blacked out maze-like hallways with unknown dangers walking around. Quite literally, that's it. It's one of the shortest entries in the Wikidot. Level 7 is a level about an ocean with carpet at the bottom. There's a bunch of skeletons floating around the water, and there's some pretty gnarly creatures that live there. And level 8 is a series of cave networks that are home to huge spiders and some old, unknown, ancient cave-dwelling people. Yeah, that's the speedrunning explanation of the first 9 levels. I've gone over all of them in much more depth than that if you want to check them out, but these are just the basics. Brugly's basics. Next on the iceberg is, me, Brugly. Hi, I make Backrooms videos, been doing it for 7 months now. I upload every other day, and I run a second channel that you should totally check out. It's called Toogly, and I think you'd like it. Shameless plugging aside though, I love doing Backrooms videos. I'm Brugly. Next on the iceberg is Mr. Ferrante, who is another Backrooms YouTuber who started, I think, a year or so before I did. He mainly focuses on the Liminal Archives website for his information, whereas I focus on the Backrooms Wikidot. And yeah, the Backrooms fandom is the next entry, and I think it's talking about the fandom wiki. Actually, I know what it is, which is another huge source of information for Backrooms stuff. The fandom wiki, I would say, is more easily accessible and easier to get articles on than the other wikis, and I myself have covered multiple levels from over there. It's a pretty fun time to read through the levels because you never know what you're gonna get, you know? You could have a masterpiece of a written level, and you could have a goofy level. That kind of adds to the fun of it, you know? But it and the Backrooms Wikidots are typically the 2 biggest Backrooms info sources on the internet, and the Liminal Archives is right behind them. Almond water is the next entry, and it's the most widely available drink inside of the Backrooms. As with most of the stuff on this iceberg, I've covered it in a video of its own, but the condensed version is pretty simple. It's a drink that helps people stay sane inside of the Backrooms, because the Backrooms drains your sanity, and the last thing you want to be is a lunatic who's crazy running around the Backrooms. You gotta keep your sanity somehow, and this drink will do it for you. It's typically available in weird ways, and it's not available on every level, but sometimes it can be coming out of pipes, or it can be an entire lake full of almond water. You never know, and it's really a mystery throughout the Backrooms of how it got there, and it's pretty much the one thing that's constant throughout all the Backrooms levels. It's also a drink in real life. Never tried it myself, since they don't sell it here in the States much, but if you have tried it, let me know what you think of it. I'm interested. Kane Pixels is up next, and I'm sure everyone watching this video has seen his viral Backrooms found footage videos. He started uploading them back in January, and they were an instant classic amongst many Backrooms fans. He gained over like 600k subscribers in 2 months, and has gotten like 30 million views on his found footage videos, and his work itself has spawned a bunch of other YouTubers to make their own found footage videos. which I'll talk about in the next episode of the Iceberg video because it's an entry in and of itself. Kane's doing his own thing, he's making his own canon, it's working for him. The Backrooms Wikidot is next, and it's the website that I get all my video ideas from. Well, mostly. It's got a more professional layout and is considered the go-to website for some people for their Backrooms lore. Now, not all the people go here, some go to the fandom or liminal archives, but a good majority of people come here. It was started a couple years ago, and it has events that happen, it has Discord stuff, it has, a pretty good balance of community stuff and professionally written stuff. It's got good info, it's got goofiness, it's the most well-rounded website, in my opinion. The last entry for today is Entities, and this is talking about the entities and creatures that have been written into the Backrooms lore. Some people love the entities, some people don't. I like them sometimes, just in specific quantities, and it just depends on context, The Wikidot and fandom websites have entire sections dedicated to entities, with biographies and explanations and pictures and drawings of each one, and they can range from robots to huge zombies to cats that can talk. There's literally no limit, which is a good and bad thing. But I have an entire YouTube Shorts series about the entities in the Backrooms, so if you want to check that out, there's like 30 of them up. I'll leave the playlist below. But I like jump scaring people with entities sometimes, so. That was part 1 of the Backrooms Iceberg. I hope you enjoyed it. If you can't tell, I do my icebergs a little bit differently than most. I kind of give the topic a basic description with just enough info to where you kind of understand it without getting into the boring details. I know not everyone likes that, but I do, so I hope you do too. Also, few people know this, but the first videos on my channel were iceberg videos. I did a liminal space iceberg, I did a cryptids iceberg, and that's what got me my first 500 subscribers. Thank you for watching to the end of the video, and thank you to Gemstone Legends for sponsoring this video. Make sure you check them out below with the QR code or the link in the description and the pinned comment if you want to support the channel and have a fun game to play at the same time. If you're still watching, you're a real one. Comment Nicebergs. If you comment that, I'm going to throw a heart at your comment because you'll have watched through this entire video, and I appreciate you for that. Like I said at the beginning, the Brugly Summer Spectacular is less than a week away. Hope you're excited for it, guys. It's gonna be awesome. Turn those noties on so you don't miss the daily videos. I'm super hyped for you guys to see them. The channel's about to go crazy. But with all that said, I will see you in the next video. Peace!
With the situation in Europe being so interesting, attention has waned on some of the old areas of contention. So I thought it might be informative to some to do a video on what's happening in Afghanistan. It is now 8 months since foreign forces pulled out of the country and the Taliban effectively took control. I know, seems longer, doesn't it? But anyway, things have been getting worryingly interesting in the region in the last couple of months. Since taking control of the country, the Taliban has been working to consolidate its grip on power. Its first move being to rebrand as the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. In February, the Taliban announced that they were forming a Grand Army, though they were vague on the purpose that this institution would undertake. However, they did state that the intention was to offer opportunities to officers and soldiers that had served in the previous Afghan military to resume their professions. Details are unclear how successful this has proven, as the Taliban were accused by the United Nations of murdering at least 100 former military personnel since taking power in August. But they must have had some returnees, as they have recently demonstrated publicly that their military has several helicopters capable of offensive operations. In a display in front of officials, the Taliban's air arms conducted live firing with MD-500 Defenders and Mi-24 Hind gunships. Additionally, they demonstrated at least one UH-60 Black Hawk being flown and used, as well as troops being transported by an Mi-17. There are also reports that several helicopters were used in February in attacks against anti-Taliban forces of the National Resistance Front. So certainly the Grand Army is being kept busy. The NRF is contesting their control, primarily in the Panjshir region, but also, it is alleged, in other areas. Naturally, with Afghanistan largely cut off from the world, these claims are difficult to verify definitively. What isn't, unfortunately, is the standardly vicious campaign being waged by the Islamic State of Khorasan, ISIS-K, against the Taliban, and, in their usual style, the population generally. The latest example of this was a series of attacks conducted last week that saw bombs placed at several schools, mosques, and on a bus. 77 people are reported to have been killed and at least 160 wounded, and this is just the latest actions by ISIS-K as they seek to further destabilise the Taliban's grip on power. Unfortunately, the people of Afghanistan are the ones caught well and truly in the middle of this conflict, with the Hazari ethnic group bearing much of the brunt. The Hazaris are Shia Muslims, and that makes them essentially heretics in the eyes of both ISIS and the Taliban. It has also created accusations that the Taliban may be both not really interested in the attacks on the Hazaris, and in fact Taliban members may have carried out some of the attacks themselves, with Hazaris online stating that they are facing persecution from the Taliban. As if these internal issues weren't problems enough, the Taliban is now starting to upset the rest of the neighbourhood. To the east, things have really deteriorated with Pakistan. The Pakistanis have traditionally had a close relationship with the Taliban, an admittedly broad statement given that Pakistan's government and military are not so much instruments of central policy, but rather multiple groups and factions with their own competing interests. Having said that, it was generally the consensus in Pakistan that the Taliban's victory would help stabilise the region, especially Pakistan's own northern tribal districts, which have a predominantly Pashtun ethnic makeup. And that desire is somewhat understandable. Since 2000, an estimated 65,000 Pakistanis have been killed in acts of terrorism. Yeah, I was amazed too. Many of these attacks were conducted by groups based initially in the Northwest Frontier province and, after being driven out by a large-scale military offensive conducted in 2014, from Afghanistan. So it was that the Pakistanis, particularly their intelligence service, assisted the Taliban during the NATO intervention in Afghanistan, a situation that did much to damage relations with the United States in consequence. However, the policy seemed to pay off with the US withdrawal and with a notionally friendly government in place in the shape of the Taliban handover. So with this, the Pakistanis were hopeful for peace. They also hoped that the Taliban, as a hardline Islamic movement, would be more interested in Muslim solidarity than nationalist policies, and settle the border dispute that has existed between the two countries since the establishment of Pakistan in 1947. Unfortunately for the Pakistani authorities, though I have to say hardly unpredictably, the Taliban, as a radical movement, are quite keen on exporting their ideology. Their Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, also known as the TTP, have been growing in strength in recent years and are posing a mounting challenge to the Pakistani authorities. Operating out of Afghanistan as effectively guests of the Taliban, the group has even gone as far as launching attacks within the Pakistani capital of Islamabad. With the Taliban taking control in Afghanistan, the Pakistanis seem to have thought that the Taliban would rein in the group. Instead, the level of violence has escalated rapidly, and things have well and truly come to a head. On April 16th, the Pakistan Air Force launched airstrikes on several locations inside Afghanistan. Pakistani security sources claimed the attacks involved drone strikes from inside Pakistani airspace, and that they were aiming to hit TTP terrorists who had been engaged in operations against Pakistan. The Taliban alleged that in fact their airspace was violated by both jets and helicopters. As for casualties inflicted, this is still uncertain, but reports are that at least 45 people died, and the UNICEF representative in Afghanistan confirmed that the airstrikes killed a total of 20 children in their homes. Naturally, reaction in Afghanistan was one of outrage. A protest in the border city of Nimroz in southwestern Afghanistan turned violent after Pakistani border guards shot at protesters, apparently injuring 6 people. But in other parts of the border, things took an even worse turn with fighting occurring between Pakistan's security forces and the Taliban. This is likely local forces acting on their own initiative, as the Taliban government has been reluctant to express too strong an opinion in the matter. The strongest condemnation came on the 25th of April from the Taliban's acting defence minister, Mullah Mohammad Yaqub Mujahid, who said that We tolerated the invasion this time for our national interest, and next time we might not do so. Whether the Taliban, with their rather decentralised command structure, can keep a lid on the TTP and their own local forces is the million-dollar question. Because they probably really want to if they can, because they are also in the process of provoking their other neighbours, principally the Iranians. Because on Afghanistan's western border, things are escalating as well. Tensions have, as with Pakistan, been mounting for months, with the two sides actually fighting each other in December. Then again on Saturday, Iranian border forces and Taliban clashed over a road that the Taliban were building in the border region. There are also reports that the Taliban seized 7 Iranian guard posts. All this led to the border being closed by Iran until today, but also to the deployment of tanks by Iran to the area. Though things appear to be simmering down, the continued border issues, as well as Iran's concern over attacks in Afghanistan on Shias, means that this is another situation to keep an eye on. And of course, all of this doesn't address the fact that Afghanistan is in a huge financial crisis. The UN reports that 97% of Afghans are expected to be living in poverty by the middle of this year, being unable to buy basic commodities, including food. This, of course, is all a very minimal description of the situation faced by the Taliban and the people of Afghanistan. It's all far more complicated than I've gone into here. But needless to say, the situation both in the country and in the whole region is definitely one that is going to be creating issues for the foreseeable future.
With regard to Russia and to China, quite different. I mean, the Russian involvement in this region is deeply relevant to us in Israel because we effectively have a border with Russia now, because Russia is the key player in Syria. The Russians, of course, are selling weapons also to the Saudis and to the Egyptians, so they're here. But at the end of the day, Russia actually is, in a way, is a secondary global actor, which is trying hard to act like a primary global actor, but it doesn't actually have the economic muscle behind that to really sustain it. So this is with regard to Russia. We have to tread carefully, but the return of Russia to the Middle East and to the Mediterranean, important as it is, does not profoundly and utterly alter the architecture of the region. It's important, but it's not cardinal, I would say. China, by contrast, is a longer term, I won't say threat, but is a longer term challenge to understand exactly what the Chinese want and to act accordingly. My own view, at least, is that Israel has been somewhat complacent in recent years in that regard, thinking only of the economic opportunity represented by Chinese interest and not of the potential strategic challenge and threat further down the line. That, I think, is now changing, largely as a result of American pressure on Israel. Actually, the Americans have simply said, guys, you have to make a decision here. You can't carry on. So you can't carry on to not take into account the strategic importance of Chinese entry into the infrastructure. I'm told by those dealing closely with this that there will probably be no further major Chinese infrastructural projects in Israel of the type such as the Shanghai International Port in Haifa. There's not going to be a repeat of this because Israel is becoming increasingly aware of the style in which China begins with commerce, begins with creating facilities for economic purposes, but that is likely later on to take on geopolitical importance. There's an interesting historical parallel, actually, which I think is maybe of relevance to Indian partners in particular, which is this, of course, is exactly the way that the European colonialists found their way into the Indian subcontinent. First of all, as you know well, better than I, was the British East India Company and French East India Company and the Dutch East India Company who first of all made their way in for commercial exploitation of India's resources, and then the flag, the state followed, geopolitics followed commerce. And I think China is doing something very similar in the Middle East and elsewhere. The Middle East is, of course, an essential pathway between South China and the Mediterranean. That's to say, it's on the Belt and Road map, and the Chinese are beginning to try to develop that. My own view, bottom line, is that China, in the longer term, is likely to begin to align more closely with US enemies in the region, and that as a result of that, if there's going to be a US-China Cold War, it will also eventually likely to find its way into our region, also with, of course, ourselves and the Saudis and others aligned with the United States, and perhaps US adversaries seeking to Iran and Syria and so on, seeking to draw closer to Beijing. So that's the long-term prospect, I think. I think Israel's increasingly aware of that long-term prospect and is therefore acting accordingly to prevent, the deepening of Chinese involvement or even control of significant aspects of the infrastructure of that country.
Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.
So today I have a quick update from IonQ for you guys. IonQ and Hyundai Motor expand partnership to use quantum computing for object detection. Okay, so first and foremost, if you'll recall, IonQ's partnership with Hyundai is nothing new, as back in January of this year, it was announced that this partnership was now in place in order to develop new variational quantum algorithms to study lithium compounds and their chemical reactions involved in battery chemistry. So essentially, this partnership was established so that Hyundai could develop more efficient and advanced electric vehicle batteries with the help of IonQ's extremely advanced quantum computers. But in this current update, however, Hyundai Motor Company announced a new project designed to apply quantum machine learning to image classification and 3D object detection for future mobilities. So not only is Hyundai looking to develop more advanced lithium batteries, but they want to couple this with self-driving automation technology for their future electric vehicles. And as you can imagine, image classification and 3D object detection are fundamental steps towards the next generation of autonomous vehicles. So together, IonQ and Hyundai will look to improve computational functionality through even more efficient machine learning on quantum computers, as they can process enormous amounts of data faster and more accurately than classical computers. And it's these classical computers that are limited to processing each bit, a 1 or a 0, at different times, whereas with a quantum computer using qubits, you can literally remain in both a 1 and a 0 state simultaneously, which of course makes processing information insanely faster. And get this, using what IonQ is calling a breakthrough in encoding images in quantum states, they're already well underway in classifying 43 different types of road signs using IonQ's quantum processors. And in the next phase of testing, we'll get to see the two companies apply IonQ's machine learning data to Hyundai's testing environment to simulate various real-world scenarios. Since, as you can imagine, driving on the road presents countless variables that need to be accounted for if Hyundai plans to compete with the likes of Tesla. And while it's pretty obvious that Tesla is already years ahead of their competition when it comes to autonomous vehicles, I think it'll be interesting to see if there really will be any companies that'll be able to catch up with Tesla. Because while Tesla definitely has collected the most data, they're not using quantum computers. So while both Hyundai and Tesla are using machine learning to teach their vehicles to become fully autonomous, it'll be interesting to see how adding a quantum computer into the mix could potentially speed up the process for Hyundai. And Peter Chapman, the president and CEO of IonQ, stated in this press release that we are excited to expand our existing relationship with Hyundai Motor to focus on another key aspect of next generation mobility. From partnering on battery research for electric vehicles to image classification and object detection research for automated driving, we expect to see quantum computers become an even more integral part in developing novel transportation solutions. So, as part of this project, both IonQ and Hyundai will look to develop quantum techniques for the extremely broad task of 3D object detection, which will expand their current work on recognizing road signs to include other objects like pedestrians and cyclists. And running object recognition tasks on IonQ's latest and most powerful quantum computer, Aria, should enable more efficient processing with lower costs, leading to the development of safer, more intelligent autonomous vehicles in the future. And I'm personally extremely excited to see just how well Aria takes to this, because Aria currently has 20 algorithmic qubits, making Aria the industry's most powerful quantum computer based on standard application-oriented industry benchmarks. So overall, this partnership is extremely exciting, and I think long-term investors in IonQ should feel even more confident in their positions right now. Quantum computers may still be in its infancy, but IonQ is proving that there's no shortage of applications in how quantum computers can be applied to everyday objects. And it's companies like IonQ, I believe, that'll be leading the way in the future. And that'll wrap up the video for today. Thanks as always, and I'll see you next time.
So it turns out that the famous pool rooms level 37, has a couple of secrets that I didn't know about, and maybe you didn't either. Specifically, that there are 2 hidden sublevels that are accessed through the pool rooms. That's right, 2 entire sublevels. I had no clue. And in this video, I want to dive into them. You get what I did there? Anyways, if that sounds interesting, stick around for the explanation. But first, check out my second channel, man, for more of your boy. Alright, now, let's get into the video. Also, the last couple minutes of the video, I'm going to be explaining to you all about the Brugly Summer Spectacular, where I'm going to be uploading over 50 videos from May to June. I'm going to be detailing the content, going over the schedule, all that good stuff. Just stick around for the end of the video. You won't be disappointed. The first secret sublevel of the pool rooms is called level 37.3, or Forest Luxury. This level is located between 37 and 38, obviously, that's why it's called a sublevel. You can get to the sublevel by wandering into the pool rooms until you find a modern looking house. Now this house will look like it actually belongs in the pool rooms, because it kind of blends in, it has the same tile on the outside and that kind of stuff, but if you open the door to it and you walk into it, you'll be sent to the sub-level area, which itself is classified as a class 1 difficulty, so it's pretty safe, and it's split into 2 different parts: the interior, or the inside of the house, and the exterior, the front and backyards. The interior of the house looks like a nice modern house. New appliances, new decorations, and it smells like air freshener. There are actually bedrooms here in this house, and all the rooms are furnished with decorations and amenities, you know, like tables, chairs, beds, mattresses, blankets, all that stuff. And you can actually sleep in the bedrooms, and it's recommended to because they're comfortable, apparently. The exterior part of the area is the front and backyard, like I said, and also the porch area. This is a big difference from how the main part of the pool rooms looks, because there's grass here, and there's water in the pool rooms. So you actually might be happy to stumble upon this sublevel, so you don't have to keep swimming. It's kind of like a good resting area. The porch is made of white bricks, and there's actually a big garage door next to it. And it took Meg a bunch of tries to get into it, and when they did, they found a ton of supplies stashed away, like almond water, food, and other stuff. And weirdly, there was a note there that said, quote, "Good job on opening the garage door. I didn't expect anyone to open it. So here's some rewards." Now, after all the supplies were searched, the door itself was looked at thoroughly by Meg's scientists, and it turns out that it's made out of titanium, which is extremely strong, and overdoing it for a garage door, so no one knows why the garage door was so thick and strong. There's also a pool in the house's backyard that gets deeper and deeper the further you go down through it. It's actually thought that the water might take you back to the main pool rooms level, but that's not confirmed right now. In this little area, there's actually a couple of friendly colonies that permanently live here, and they kind of treat it like an oasis, because it kind of is, you know, it's a land amidst all the water. You can enter this sublevel by finding that modern house in the pool rooms and walking through the door, or you can exit by walking out past the front yard of the house, and that'll send you back to the main part of level 37. So that was the first secret sublevel of the pool rooms. Now it's time for the second one, which is sublevel 37.5, or the pool of the hotel. It's classified as a class 0 and is the safest area throughout all of the pool room's domain. It's got the lowest classification ranking. But an interesting thing is that it's not exactly known where the level is. It's somewhere between level 5 and 37, we know that for a fact, but it's thought to be right after the pool room's main level. The level itself is a tiny-ish pool area at the bottom of a slide. The pool itself looks really similar to the pool rooms with the tile and stuff, but inside of this pool's water is fish. Interesting. And this area can only be gotten to by going down that slide to get here. The only entities here are the fish in the water and this bat creature called the rollers. They're both harmless, and they'll just let you swim in peace, man. To get to this area, you gotta go down that slide like I said, but the slide's entrance is from level 5, which is a sneaky way to get to the pool rooms. To exit this hidden pool area, you can go through a door hatch down there that leads you to the pool rooms, or you can walk back up the slide the way you came, but it'll take you to level -5 instead of level 5. So you